For a long moment, they stayed like that before finally, slowly, pulling apart. Lily ducked her head, wiping her mouth with the back of her hand as she glanced nervously toward her house. They were barely a block away. It felt like playing with fire right on her parents' doorstep. Lucas Carter was getting way too good at pushing her boundaries. She had to get smarter, had to stop letting him trick her so easily. Otherwise, she thought, a blush creeping up her neck will end up, before we're even married. She steeled herself. Her heart, her entire being belonged to him, but she had to draw the line somewhere. Kissing and hugging? Fine, she'd let him have that. But anything more would have to wait until after the wedding, or at least until they had the marriage license. No, wait, the engagement. What if he conned her into getting engaged before they were even ready for the license? Okay, the engagement was the absolute earliest. She couldn't give in so easily. You're terrible, Lily breathed, finally catching her breath. She planned to drag him somewhere crowded, somewhere he couldn't pull any stunts. But of course, he'd agreed to her plan only to corner her for one last round before they left. He was always one step ahead. I'm flattered, Lucas said with a shrug and a grin. Lily just stared at him, her mouth slightly agape. His ego seemed to expand by the day. To his credit, this time he'd kept his hands to himself. It was just a kiss. She wasn't sure if she should be relieved or disappointed, but she definitely wasn't going to praise him for it. He'd just take it as an invitation to push further. You're such a jerk, she grumbled, annoyed at herself for how weak it sounded. She had to avoid his eyes, otherwise her resolve would crumble instantly. Her gaze drifted down, and she noticed the distinct bulge in his jeans. She quickly looked away. It must be a pain to have to carry around the AC remote everywhere he went. Lucas sighed dramatically. I told you to stop complimenting me. You're making me blush. Or are you just that into me? Don't move, she said suddenly. He froze, genuinely curious. What's up? Like a spy on a mission, Lily scanned their surroundings before cautiously lifting the hem of his t-shirt, revealing the faint outline of his abs. She stared, fascinated. The night she'd slept over at his place, she hadn't gotten a chance to look this closely. She wasn't his girlfriend then. A slow smile spread across her face, completely unaware of how captivating it was in his eyes. Can I touch them? She whispered. I'm not stopping you. Lily bit her lip, nodded, and reached out, her fingers lightly tracing the firm muscles. See? Lucas chuckled. Now we're both jerks. You're the jerk, not me, she retorted, poking him playfully. This is payback. She looked him dead in the eye. And let's be clear. You kissed me, and now I'm touching your stomach. That makes us even. So you can't turn around and say you get to touch my stomach. Lucas frowned. That logic sounded disturbingly familiar. Had she learned it from him? No, wait. He learned it from her. His pure, innocent self had clearly been corrupted by this dork. He nodded internally, satisfied that he'd absolve himself of all blame. But he also realized the frog was getting smarter. She was learning to kick the firewood out from under the pot. His slow-boil seduction plan would require a lot more effort from now on. It was his signature move. If the frog figured it out and jumped, what kind of master strategist would he be? No protagonist in the novels he'd read was this pathetic. As Lily's palm flattened against his skin, the calluses on her hands were more pronounced. The playful smile on Lucas's face slowly faded, replaced by a serious, heavy gaze. But before she could notice, the smile was back. After a moment, Lily cleared her throat and pulled his shirt back down. Lucas felt a strange pang of disappointment. Done already? He asked, trying to hold on to the sensation. Okay, now let me touch your stomach. Lily scrambled back 2 steps. We had a deal. Lucas nodded sagely. We did. This isn't payback. This is a new transaction. You let me touch your stomach, and then I'll let you touch mine again. While she was still processing his shameless logic, he grabbed her wrist and placed her hand back on his abs. Lily blinked, her brain feeling like it was about to short-circuit. How could he be so devious? Would she ever win? In a moment of desperation, she turned and ran. Her long hair bounced with every step, a beautiful, frantic retreat. But halfway down the block, she realized he wasn't chasing her. Like a clueless deer that bolts from a hunter only to stop and wander back to see what the fuss was about, she paused and looked back. Sure enough, Lucas was standing right where she'd left him, a thoughtful expression on his face. Slowly, cautiously, she drifted back toward him. What are you doing? Is something wrong? She asked softly. Lucas slowly looked up, a corner of his mouth turning up in a smirk. Waiting for you to take the bait. Ew, she yelped, spinning around to run again. But this time, the distance was too short. Lucas, no longer lost in thought, closed the gap in a few long strides, wrapping his arms around her from behind and pulling her tight against his chest. She giggled, struggling for a moment before giving up and melting into his embrace. "Stop messing around," she pleaded, her voice laced with laughter. They were at the end of the alley now, and a few passers-by cast curious glances in their direction, their expressions souring as if a lemon had just exploded in their mouths. "People are watching," she whispered, rubbing her cheek against his arm, deploying the full force of her newfound talent for acting cute. It was something she'd never known how to do. She'd never had anyone to be cute for her. But with Lucas, it came naturally, and she was getting better at it every day. A little while later, Lucas was scrolling through his phone. "So, where do you want to go? I think I still owe you a trip to the aquarium or an amusement park." "It just feels weird to only be having fun all the time," Lily said, looking down and fiddling with her fingers. An unshakable feeling of guilt hovered over her like a storm cloud. It was like she carried a fire extinguisher inside her. Whenever she started to feel happy, the thoughts of her family, of the need to earn money, of the mountain of pressure on her shoulders would rush in to douse the flames. Lucas smiled and squeezed her cheek, sighing softly. "Lily, you're only 19. He stood in the path of the morning sun, holding his right hand out to her. His smile was gentle, his eyes full of warmth. "I swear I'll make you happy for the rest of your life. You won't have a choice." He stood silhouetted against the rising sun. "You just focus on being happy. Leave the rest to me." Under the golden light of dawn, her small hand slowly found his larger one, their fingers lacing together. Lily tucked her arm through his. "But I'm already happy just being with you," she said earnestly. How could she possibly be any happier? She couldn't imagine a better life than this. She knew, better than anyone, the pain and loneliness she had endured to get here. If a happier life did exist, it was in the future. Every single day she would spend with Lucas. Girls were dreamers, especially when they were in love. She often found herself secretly imagining what life would be like after they were married. If he was willing, she'd drag him grocery shopping every day and make him carry everything while she just held his arm. They would wake up together in the morning, and she could snuggle against him, refusing to get out of bed. And once her mom's medical bills were paid off, she'd buy so many new dresses, get all dolled up, and she'd specifically wear them when she was on her period, just to drive him crazy. That'd teach him to be a jerk all the time. And if they had a baby, that would be even better. She wondered if Lucas liked kids. He doted on his sister, so he probably would. Lost in thought, she hugged his arm even tighter. Lucas was both pleased and exasperated. He gently poked her on the forehead. "You're way too easy to please." Lily didn't argue. She just closed her eyes and rested her head on his shoulder, the corners of her eyes crinkling in a smile. She leaned her full weight against him, loving the feeling, knowing he would always be there to hold her up. He could call her a slacker all he wanted. She was perfectly content to be his slacker. "I've decided," Lucas announced suddenly. "Just like I taught you how to smile, I'm going to teach you how to experience life. That's your next assignment, Ms. Thompson. That time we went to the movies, was that your first time?" he asked. "Yeah. From now on, for a long, long time, I'm going to show you all sorts of things you've never experienced before," Lucas said, his tone serious. He didn't care how cheesy it sounded. He'd just forget he said it a minute later. This dork had never lived like a normal girl. She'd never gone shopping just for fun, never experimented with makeup during her curious teenage years, and never just hung out with a group of friends, chatting or going on trips. Her world was too small. She'd only been to a movie theater for the first time a few weeks ago. Some experiences were tied to a certain age, and it might be a little late, but he was determined to give them all to her. Lily tilted her head, looking at him and blinking slowly. How long will that take? She had a feeling he was about to start hitting her with his old "it's all part of the plan" lines again. Well, fine, she thought. I'll just pretend to fall for it. It's not my fault I'm smarter than you. She watched as Lucas looked up, thinking for a moment before declaring with a grave expression, "A lifetime." A long while later, Lucas and Lily discovered a very, very serious problem. They both had crippling decision paralysis. Lucas didn't care where they went. He was happy to do whatever Lily wanted. Coincidentally, Lily felt the exact same way. They were stuck in an endless loop. "Where do you want to go?" "Whatever you want. I'm good with anything." "Me too. You pick." The truth was, the destination didn't matter. All that mattered was being together. After several minutes of this, Lucas couldn't take it anymore. "Okay, that's it. Let's just flip a coin." He was about to open WhatsApp to send the dice emoji when he saw a new post on Emma's Facebook timeline. Don't ask how he managed to navigate to his timeline while trying to send a message. It was either him or the notification badges, and only one could survive. The photo showed Aaron dressed in a perfect Shinobu Kocho cosplay. Judging by the costume crowd around them, they were at a comic convention. "Let's go bust them," Lucas said with a sudden grin. Seattle wasn't big enough to have two cons on the same day. A quick search would tell them exactly where to go. When the GPS announced a 1-hour drive, Lily, who had been excited a moment ago, hesitated. Isn't that a lot of time to spend in the car? Don't think about it. Just think about the fun. Don't you want to see the look on Erin's face when we surprise her? What was the point of living if not for a little chaos? I do, Lily admitted honestly. The idea of ambushing Erin did sound pretty fun. Lucas nodded. Then it's worth an hour of my time. Let's go. The moment they stepped into the convention center, they were surrounded by people in all kinds of strange and wonderful costumes, laughing and walking around. It was a haven for extroverts. You could ask anyone for a photo, and they'd most likely be thrilled to oblige. It was Lucas's first time at a con, and he found it all pretty cool. The sheer number of people made Lily a little nervous, and she held Lucas's hand tightly. I don't see Erin. Should I text her? Lucas frowned. Are you serious? If you text her, she'll know we're here. I could just ask her to send me a picture of where she is. That would be easier than searching this whole place, she whispered. When she got no response, she turned and saw Lucas staring at her with an exaggerated, wide-eyed expression of shock. Have you gotten smarter? Ow, stop poking my head, it hurts. While they waited for Erin's reply, Lucas walked around like an old man, one hand on his lower back, the other holding Lily's. When he saw someone cosplaying as a Kamen Rider, he eagerly ran over for a picture, with Lily laughing and snapping a couple photos for him. She thought he was ridiculously cute when he acted childish. After she took the picture, she saved it to the special album she'd created just for him. It hadn't been that long, and he looked the same in all the photos, but his role in her life had changed completely. First a friend, then a not-so-innocent friend, and now her boyfriend. Stop grinning like that, Lucas teased. Is Kamen Rider really that handsome? My boyfriend is handsome, Lily huffed, annoyed. Her eyes had been on him the entire time. If you're going to compliment me, don't hold back. Now, it was Lucas's turn to grin foolishly. Maybe it was rare to see a couple at a Comic-Con, but Lucas felt the icy stares of countless onlookers boring into him. They looked ready to tear him limb from limb. So this is what it feels like to be a normie, he thought to himself. It's pretty awesome. As they walked, a girl in a revealing cosplay passed them, arm in arm with her boyfriend. Do you like stuff like this? Lily asked quietly. She always had a feeling Lucas was into this kind of thing, but was too embarrassed to bring it up again, especially after he tried to trick her into wearing that historical costume. I wasn't looking, Lucas said instantly, paranoid she was setting a trap. I know you weren't. Aren't you afraid to wear something like that out in public? Lucas asked with a smile. He knew she was too shy to even show her calves outside. Of course I am, she said, as if it were obvious. Then why would you ask that? He said, puzzled. Her train of thought was always a mystery. Lily tightened her grip on his arm and looked up at him seriously. Because I like you even more than you think. Lucas's attempt to kiss her right then and there was swiftly rejected, and he sighed in defeat. One of these days, he vowed silently, I'm going to pin you down and kiss you until you pass out. A long while later, Lily's fishing expedition paid off. With the photo Erin sent, they quickly found her laughing hysterically in front of booth. Two guys, one cosplaying as Erin and the other as Reiner, were sitting in chairs, staring each other down. They'd even brought a speaker to blast dramatic music. Even Lucas couldn't help but chuckle. Lily put a finger to her lips, signaling for him to be quiet. She tiptoed up behind Erin and poked her in the side. Erin jumped, spinning around. When she saw them, her jaw dropped even wider. She rubbed her eyes several times to make sure she wasn't hallucinating. What are you two doing here? Came to see you, Lily said softly. While the two friends talked, Lucas scanned the crowd again, surprised by how many characters he recognized. Erin eyed them suspiciously. You didn't come all this way just to rub your relationship in my face, did you? This was outrageous. Being force-fed their PDA on a regular basis was one thing, but to be hunted down this far from campus. It was fine. She wouldn't curse them out. It's the middle of summer, and you're dressed like it's winter, Lucas observed. I'm here to have fun, not to be ogled, Erin replied. Though Lucas hadn't meant anything by it, Erin's mind, permanently in the gutter, immediately took it there. She leaned in closer to them. You know, she whispered, most of the girls in the skimpy outfits probably aren't even real anime fans. They just love the attention. They probably don't even know what show their character is from. So you're here out of pure passion? You know it. Is it a good cosplay, or what? Erin handed her prop, sword to Lily, and did a cheerful spin. Not bad, Lucas nodded. Your otaku cred is officially approved. He looked around again. Where's Emma? She did one lap, and then went back to the hotel to nap. Erin let out a huge yawn, looking exhausted. Lily stepped closer, her expression concerned as she examined the dark circles under Aaron's eyes. Did you not sleep well last night? Don't even ask. Emma and I promised we'd go to bed after one win. Famous last words. Aaron held up 4 fingers. We didn't get our first win until 4 in the morning. Lily tilted her head. Maybe she'd been worried for nothing. See, Lily? Aaron said with a grin. I told you, you just needed to get out more. Isn't this fun? She was glad someone had finally managed to drag the girl out of her self-imposed shell. She had to admit, Lucas was better at it than she was. Or maybe that was just the magic of love, capable of things friendship couldn't always achieve. After Aaron left to get some sleep, Lucas and Lily continued to wander through the convention for a long time. Lily's eyes darted everywhere, filled with a boundless curiosity. Lucas watched the cosplayers running makeshift food stalls for fun, saw the massive crowds, and suddenly had an idea. I need to make a call, he told her. The phone rang twice before it was picked up. Yo, Leo, what's up? Working, Leo Jenkins said, his voice flat with boredom. The art team has been done for days, just messing around now, but us programmers are still drowning in bugs. Every time he saw an error message, he felt the urge to jump out a window. What kind of heartless boss makes you work on a weekend? Lucas dropped the act. Grab the 2 spare phones from the studio and get over here. I want to run a demo event. The concentration of anime fans here was off the charts, and all the people with cameras were potential YouTubers and streamers. Free advertising. It would be a crime not to capitalize on the hype. Just after noon, Leo arrived in a taxi. He brought not just the phones, but also a massive banner, just as Lucas had requested. Carter, I'm here, Leo said, panting. Then he noticed Lily standing next to Lucas and bellowed, Hey sis, good to see you. His voice was so loud that everyone nearby turned to look. Lily, stunned, just nodded dumbly. A second later, it registered, and her already warm cheeks flushed a deep crimson. Don't call me that. Dude, are we even allowed to do this here? Lucas nodded. I already asked the event staff. It's fine. We just don't have a designated booth since we didn't register in advance. Leo waved a dismissive hand. Who needs one? He promptly taped the banner to a nearby wall. It read, in giant, bold letters, the game that will change the American market. The rising star of the gaming industry. Free demo of our new card-based roguelike. Lucas's eyebrows shot up. All he'd asked for was a promotional banner. He hadn't expected this. It was so over the top that both he and Lily felt too embarrassed to stand near it. But the her mentality was a powerful thing. At first, only a few curious people trickled over. Soon, a long line had formed. But they weren't Lucas's real target. When he saw people filming videos joining the line, a sly smile crept on his face. You get content, I get free advertising. It's a win-win. That evening, after seeing Leo off in a taxi, Lily gently wiped the sweat from Lucas's cheek with a tissue. Was today a small success? She asked softly. Did you have fun? I did, Lily replied earnestly. Whether it was wandering around with him in the morning or watching him con people into playing his game in the afternoon, she'd had an amazing time. Lucas smiled at her. Then it was a success. We'll go somewhere else next time. We've got all the time in the world. The girl nodded, pressing closer to his side. Are you moved? He asked. You want to kiss me? She said with a knowing humph, her eyes sparkling with newfound confidence. All his scheming was making her smarter. At this rate, the day she could finally turn the tables on him wasn't far off. She wanted to be the one teasing him for a change. Lucas grinned mischievously. You better not get in the car with me later. Lily froze. It only now dawned on her why he had insisted on walking Leo all the way to the taxi stand. Was it too late to call the police? Asking for a friend. Time flew by and August arrived. Fueled by a new wave of enthusiasm, the team finished the game much earlier than Lucas had anticipated. By August 6th, the company had already brought in tens of thousands of dollars in profit. While these hyper-casual games on social media platforms didn't need a lengthy certification process, the platform, in this case Facebook, took a 70% cut of all revenue. The studio only got to keep 30%. And this was less than 2 weeks after launch, before any real marketing push. For a brand new studio, it was more than just a respectable start. Now it was all about the growth curve, the difference between making a living and making a fortune. So, are you treating us to dinner or what? Aaron called out, leading the charge from inside the studio. I'm still dreaming about that lobster that was bigger than my head. Before Lucas could answer, Jason Miller jumped in. Tomorrow. We'll all go out for a great meal tomorrow. Everyone take today off. You've all worked incredibly hard. After the cheerful crowd dispersed, Jason sat down across from Lucas. The sudden shift in atmosphere made Lucas's expression turn serious. When two guys fell into a silence like this, it was never about something small. Vanessa asked me to tell you something, Jason said, getting straight to the point. She saw Lily crying when she was at the hospital with a friend. Lucas's eyes widened. When? Yesterday. Jason seemed to struggle with his next words. Be straight with me, man. Lily's mom. Does she have a disability? Yeah. Lucas saw no reason to hide it. His mind was racing, focused on what Jason had just told him. There was only one explanation. Sophia Thompson's condition was not good. Otherwise, Lily would have told him. He'd have to punish her for that later, but not now. Lucas shot up from his chair, his face a mask of grim determination. I get it. Thanks. Without another word, he strode out of the office. Half an hour later, he sat in his car, staring intently at his bank account balance on his phone. The pale light of the screen reflected in his unblinking eyes, making his expression even more grave. With the company's recent profits added to his personal savings, he had access to over $20,000. It wouldn't cripple the company to use it. That was the advantage of being small-scale. If they ran short on cash later, he could cover it. With a long, slow exhale, he opened the car door. There was nothing to hesitate about. This had been his goal from the very beginning. He walked down the familiar alley, his expression softening. Lily was still at her part-time job, which meant he only had to convince one person, Sophia. As he expected, Sophia looked surprised to see him, but a genuine smile quickly spread across her wrinkled face. Lucas? What brings you here? She was curious. Her little cabbage was still at work. Was he here to stake out his territory in advance? Lucas sat down beside her, cutting right to the chase. Sophia, did you have a checkup at the hospital yesterday? Sophia froze. Did Lily tell you? Lucas shook his head, pulling up a stool. A friend of mine works at the hospital. She said she saw Lily. He intentionally left it vague, hoping Sophia would assume his friend was a doctor or a nurse. That might make her think he could access the records, increasing the chances she'd tell him the truth. Before she could respond, he pressed on. I hear the news wasn't good. Don't you go jinxing me, Sophia said, forcing a smile, her eyes darting nervously toward a nearby drawer. Lucas's face grew heavy with a mix of frustration and confusion. Sophia, what can't you tell me? I came here alone for a reason. After a long silence, Sophia seemed to understand why he'd come by himself. Realizing she couldn't hide it any longer, she heaved a deep sigh. The doctor said the surgery has to be scheduled by the end of the month at the latest. If we wait any longer, the nerve damage will be permanent, and there will be no hope of recovery. We've already put it off for too long. As she spoke, the wrinkles around her eyes deepened, but her smile was one of resignation. But it's probably fine. I might not look it, but I'm tough. Anyone else in my situation, their nerves would have been shot long ago. I can probably hold on for a while longer. Lucas didn't respond. Instead, he stood up and started looking around the small apartment. He didn't know if it was instinct or paranoia, but something felt wrong. Sophia's repeated glances at the drawer had put him on edge. Finally, in the same drawer that held Lily's childhood photos, he found it. A small bottle filled with an amber-colored liquid. It had a more common name, pesticide. The room fell into a heavy, frightening silence. Lucas placed the bottle on the table, pretending he hadn't just seen it. Sophia, he said, forcing a smile, if the doctor says you need surgery, then let's do the surgery. Why wait when we have the money to fix it? He refused to even think about the kind of person who would sell poison to a woman in a wheelchair. Sophia's mouth opened and closed. She swallowed the instinctive "we don't have the money" and finally said in a low voice, "I'm not worth it." She had never seen that much money in her entire life. In her world, the kind of sum could give her daughter and Lucas a wonderful life, full of good food, beautiful clothes, and travels to amazing places. It shouldn't be wasted on a broken person like her. Of course you're worth it. Lucas placed his bank card on the table. You know, I started a company. I have money, and I'm going to make a lot more. He gestured to the pesticide. If you're gone, no amount of money I earn in the future can buy Lily another mother. But why Lucas? Sophia's voice was filled with confusion. She wasn't offended by his tone. She just couldn't understand why he would spend so much money to help her. Her life or death wouldn't affect his relationship with Lily. Most importantly, while she was fond of the boy and he had always been respectful and kind, that didn't warrant a gesture worth tens of thousands of dollars. Because I want Lily to be happy. It was that simple, but it was enough. It was a harsh way to put it, but Lily had been trapped by this burden for far, far too long. She's fragile enough as it is. Lucas's voice softened, growing quieter. You can't put her through more pain by making a decision you think is for her own good. The best thing for her is for you to be by her side, healthy and whole. When Sophia remained silent, he sighed again. Sophia, I'll be blunt. My original plan was to graduate, get some dead-end job, and coast through life. The only reason I started this company was to make enough money to pay for your treatment, to make Lily happy, and to give her a better life. My parents have money, and they're good people, but I can't spend 20,000 of their dollars just to make my girlfriend happy. This is different. I earned this myself. The room was quiet for a long time. Finally, with an almost imperceptible nod, Sophia whispered, "I understand. I'll do as you say." A wave of relief washed over Lucas. A small smile touched his lips. But that's not enough. Sophia looked up, confused. It wasn't okay if she refused, but it also wasn't okay if she agreed. "You have to play along with me. I don't want her to know." "Why?" "You know what Lily's like," Lucas said, looking down for a moment before meeting Sophia's eyes with a serious expression. "She already listens to everything I say. If she finds out I did something this huge for her..." He paused. "She'll never be able to live a single second for herself for the rest of her life." Lucas suddenly felt like the greediest person in the world. It wasn't enough to have all of Lily's love. He needed that love to be pure, untainted by obligation, and completely genuine. He needed her to love him deeply, but not to live for him alone. The thought brought a faint smile to his lips. "I don't know why," he said to Sophia. "I just want her to be happy from now on." This world was full of amazing things. Morning dew, evening sunsets, endless streets to explore, and breathtaking sights to see. If you just slowed down and paid attention, it would show you wonders you'd never imagined. "I want her to be able to focus on those things, like any other girl," he thought, "not spend every waking moment worrying about how to pay for her mother's medical bills." Seeing his smile, Sophia froze. 2 tears traced paths down her weathered cheeks, clinging to her chin for a moment before falling to the floor and shattering. As they fell, so did the stone that had been weighing on her heart for years. It wasn't just the hope that she might walk again. It was the simple, profound relief of a mother seeing her deepest wish come true. For her daughter to be happy, to be safe from harm, and to find a good man to share a peaceful life with. She had never once considered her own happiness. Lily had grown up without a father, and Sophia lived in constant fear for her. She couldn't even stand up, let alone defend her daughter from the world's cruelty. To make matters worse, Lily was born with a gentle, kind-hearted nature that made Sophia worry even more. She was terrified Lily would be bullied at school or tricked by some predatory man. The girl never told her anything. The night she'd come home with that burn on her arm, Sophia's heart had bled. But now, she didn't have to worry anymore. Even if she were to die in the next second, Sophia knew she would close her eyes with a smile. "Lucas, thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "On behalf of her father, thank you." "You shouldn't be thanking the guy who's stealing your daughter," Lucas joked, pulling out his phone. "I'll get in touch with some people at the hospital, and you can just tell her it was a fundraiser organized by the staff." He added a last-minute thing. He was sure Lily wouldn't question it. She would never find out the truth. He chatted with Sophia for a while longer, then left just before Lily was due home and drove back to his parents' house. When he walked in, he found his mom, Emily, and his dad, Robert, on the sofa, binging a show. Robert had finished The Sopranos and was now deep into John Adams. "You're back," Emily said softly. "There's watermelon in the fridge if you want some." "Yeah." Lucas changed his shoes and walked over to the sofa, sitting a careful distance from him. Robert noticed his son's serious expression and figured the startup must be hitting a rough patch. "What's wrong?" he asked. Lucas downed a glass of water and took a deep breath. "I'm going to pay for Lily's mom's surgery." When neither of them responded immediately, he continued, "The doctor said it has to be done by the end of the month, or it'll be too late." "How much will it cost?" Emily asked. Robert remained silent. "Around 20, maybe 25,000. Lily doesn't have that kind of money. I'm the only one who can help her." Lucas lowered his head, bracing for a lecture. But whether they yelled at him or not didn't matter. He hadn't come for their permission. He'd come to inform them. A kid spending that much money had to tell his parents. Besides, there was no way he could hide something like this from his father. In other words, whether they approved or not, he was doing it. Emily and Robert exchanged a look, and Emily deferred to her husband. While she usually ran the household, she trusted Robert's judgment on big decisions. Robert, knowing his wife's soft heart, gave her a reassuring nod. He disappeared into the bedroom for a moment and came back with a bank card, sliding it across the coffee table to Lucas. "This was for your down payment on a house, and for your wedding," he said gruffly. "You can have it early. The pin is your birthday." Lucas stared at the card, blinking. "I didn't come here to ask for money. I just came to tell you," he said, deeply moved. "I have the money. I earned it myself." If he were a few years younger, he might have started crying. Not that 21 was that old. Robert cleared his throat, his face impassive as he pocketed the card again. "Good. If you need money in the future, let us know." He turned to Lucas. When her mom is in the hospital, I'll call a friend of mine. It might make things a little easier. That's why I came, Lucas said seriously, then laid out his entire plan. Robert nodded along, while Emily listened in stunned silence. Do what you think is right, Robert said quietly after he'd finished. I'll just make the call for you. From a pragmatic standpoint, he would have preferred Lucas to leverage the favor, but his son had his reasons, and Robert wasn't going to interfere. Lucas nodded. So, about that card? I've been wanting to buy a new DSLR for a couple years now. Mom, I'm sorry, I was just kidding. Money solved problems quickly. Within 2 days, Lucas had everything arranged. Lily sat on a metal bench in the hospital corridor, her expression one of pure shock. She stared at the donation confirmation on her phone, feeling like she was in a dream. When the hospital first called, she had been so stunned she'd dropped her phone. She had always believed there were good people in the world, but she never imagined something like this would happen to her. Several doctors had organized a fund specifically for her mother. All she had to do was pay back $300 a month into the fund's account. Compared to what she was used to, it was practically nothing. Though the money had all come from Lucas, it was processed through a legitimate fundraising channel. He'd even asked William Montgomery for help to make sure every detail was perfect, so airtight it could stand up to a news investigation. The dork had no idea her benefactor was sitting right next to her. Lucas put his arm around her, letting her rest her head on his shoulder. He gently stroked her soft hair. See, he whispered, there are still good people in the world, right? The girl nodded fiercely, leaning her entire weight against him. I'm going to be a kind person, too, from now on. Lucas smiled, his eyes full of affection. You already are, he said honestly. That's why this happened. Lily soaked in his words, not saying anything more, just taking a deep breath. After the initial disbelief faded, a wave of overwhelming anxiety washed over her. The waiting was always the hardest part. Lucas reached out and cupped her cheek, then gave it a firm squeeze, pinching a bit of flesh. Ow, that hurts. Lily squeezed that eye shut, her expression pitiful. She was such a dork, she didn't even try to pull away, just whine about the pain. It's supposed to hurt. This is what you get for not coming to me when you're in trouble. Lucas fought to keep his lips from curving into a smile at her cuteness, forcing a stern look. But you're the only person I can come to. Lily mumbled, her lower lip jutting out in a slight pout. I just hesitated. Why? Were you afraid I'd think you were a burden? She gave a barely audible MHM. The afternoon she found out about the surgery, she had hidden away and cried for what felt like hours. She kept wiping her tears, opening her phone, hovering her finger over his name and her contacts, but she could never bring herself to press call. She'd repeated this cycle over and over until her eyes were no longer swollen, then went home to make dinner for her mother. She knew, without a doubt, that Lucas would have dropped everything to help her, but she still hesitated. The habits of a lifetime, not wanting to bother anyone, fearing rejection, were carved into her very bones. They weren't so easily changed. I was wrong, she whispered, just before he could pinch her again. She kept her head down, but her big, watery eyes looked up at him, blinking pleadingly. No man on earth could resist that look, and Lucas was no exception. His hand, which had been poised to strike again, softened and instead brushed her bangs out of her eyes. Good, he huffed. As long as you know, he added, looks like I need to show you just how capable your boyfriend is. Once the company stabilizes in a couple of months. Just then, a doctor opened an office door and poked his head out. Are you Sophia Thompson's family? Yes, Lucas said, standing up. His voice was steady, but he immediately asked, when can the surgery be scheduled? We started making arrangements 2 days ago. We can do it tomorrow, the doctor, a man with square-rimmed glasses, explained patiently. This isn't a routine procedure. Not just anyone can perform it. It's not something we can do on the spot. In truth, a number of irresistible forces had worked together to get the surgery scheduled so quickly. Hearing Lucas's confident yes, Lily, who had been about to speak, closed her mouth and subtly leaned a little closer to him. It was as if he had eyes in the back of his head. He immediately sensed her movement and squeezed her hand tightly. Understood. And the prognosis? Is it good? Lucas asked quietly. Since being admitted that morning, Sophia had been through a relentless series of tests, only settling into her hospital bed in the late afternoon. As he spoke, he felt Lily's grip on his hand tighten, an unconscious reaction. He squeezed back gently, rubbing his thumb over her knuckles to reassure her. The lead surgeon is a pioneer in his field. The expected outcome is optimistic, the doctor said, glancing at the chart before sighing. Honestly, this would have been a very straightforward case. If she had undergone surgery when the injury first occurred, she would have made a full recovery. Now, the best we can hope for is that she'll be able to walk. Running and jumping will be very difficult. Out of Lily's line of sight, Lucas's other hand, which had been clenched into a fist, finally relaxed. "We're more than happy with that," he said with a small smile. "Thank you for all your hard work. As long as there was a chance for improvement, the money was worth it. At least they had tried." The doctor nodded, handing Lucas a chart. "That's all for now. Just remember, no food or water for 6 to 8 hours before the surgery." He closed the door, leaving another man who had been approaching with his own chart to wait his turn. That look of anxious disappointment was all too common in hospitals. It was why Lucas hated places like this. Lucas held Lily's hand as they walked back to Sophia's room. The hallway floor had just been mopped, and the sharp, sterile scent of disinfectant filled the air, annoying him. No matter how close he got, he wouldn't be able to smell the faint, clean scent of her hair. "Back to what we were talking about," Lucas said, noticing she was still tense and deciding to change the subject. "In a couple of months, I'm going to show you just how much money your boyfriend can make." Unlike polished mobile games that launch with a huge splash, the casual games on Facebook's platform had a different life cycle. They often took a month or two to gain traction before hitting their peak. Lucas squeezed her fingers. "I'm going to be a big shot CEO someday. My girlfriend can't be so afraid to spend money, you know? If I had called you and asked to borrow $20,000, would you have lent it to me?" Even though she knew the answer, Lily couldn't help but ask. "Of course," Lucas said with a wicked grin. "But first, I would have made you promise to marry me. I'm not some saint, you know. Why would I help you for nothing? Only the world's biggest idiot would do that." Lily tightened her arm around his, tilting her head to look at him. "What if it was 100,000? Then you'd have to cook and clean for me for the rest of your life. You'd have to make whatever I wanted, let me bully you every day, and give me a whole bunch of kids." He played along with her childish, silly questions. "A million," she pressed. "A million gets you 10 lifetimes." Lily nodded thoughtfully. "Then lend me $1 million. Lucas froze, taking a few seconds to process what she meant. A slow, uncontrollable grin spread across his face. "You'd better not regret that," he chuckled. "The second I make $1 million, you're not getting away." Lily's anxiety had melted away. She held onto his arm as if she'd never let go. "I won't run." She hadn't been joking. A moment later, she whispered, "You don't actually have to make $1 million, you know? Earning money is hard. I've never even seen 100,000. What would I do with $1 million? As long as you say you love me, that's enough for me." "What did you say?" Lucas, who had been calculating how many years it would take to earn $1 million, snapped back to reality. "Nothing, nothing." "Are you tired?" Lily asked softly, her voice laced with guilt. Her eyes, full of concern, scanned his face. She knew Lucas was not a morning person. Waking up, even a little early, would leave him yawning all day. Yet today, he had been at her house at the crack of dawn to take them to the hospital and had been running around nonstop ever since. There were already red veins in his eyes. He was clearly running on fumes. "It's fine. Just leave everything to me," Lucas replied, his tone casual. Lily cupped his face in her hands, looking into his weary eyes as hers began to turn red. Lucas took her hands in his and asked with a roguish smile, "Still can't figure out why I'm so good to you?" She nodded slightly. He brought the back of her hand to his lips and kissed it gently. "Same reason as you. I like you even more than you think." Lily's breath hitched, her gaze turning helpless. What does he get out of making my heart race like this every day? She thought. I have no money. All I have is myself. If he wants me, he can just take me. You still haven't answered my question from before, she said. Lucas tilted his head. What question? Why are you so good to me when I already like you so much? You just said it would be the same even after we got married, but you never told me why. Because I want a lot of things. Your love isn't enough. I also want you to be happy every day, to have no worries. He turned to look her in the eye. Besides, you haven't even married me yet. Lily turned her head away. I'm not old enough, so you'll marry me when you are? Lucas pressed, leaning close to her ear. She shot him a look that was a mix of embarrassment and annoyance, his teasing momentarily eclipsing her guilt. You're bullying me. Who forces a girl to say something like that? She couldn't just blurt out, the day I turn 21, I'm dragging you to get a marriage license. Even if that's exactly what she was thinking, she couldn't say it. The more she thought about it, the angrier she got, and Lucas finally got what was coming to him, a firm bonk on the head from hers. They were chatting as they walked back to the hospital room. The moment they stepped inside, Lucas froze. His mother, Emily, was sitting by the bed, laughing and talking with Sophia. He rubbed his eyes hard, convinced he was dreaming. What are you doing here? Lucas asked. Emily shot him a glare. Am I not allowed to visit? She turned back to Sophia with a theatrical wave of her hand. See? I told you he's been a handful since he was a kid. The first thing he says when he sees me is, "What are you doing here?" Sophia couldn't help but chuckle, though the lines on her face still looked so tired. The contrast between the two women was stark. Though Sophia was only a few years older than Emily, she looked a decade older. It was only then that Lucas realized he was still holding Lily's hand. For a moment, he didn't know what to do. He might be thick-skinned, but holding hands in front of both their parents still made him nervous. While he was debating whether to let go, Lily, having realized the same thing, gently slipped her hand out of his. Now he was annoyed. He was about to grab it back when he saw the pleading look in her eyes. It was surprisingly thrilling. Like a victorious general, he gave a mental smirk and decided to grant a temporary ceasefire. That's all it takes to make you fold. You just get used to your own kids, Sophia said with a faint smile. There aren't many boys as good as Lucas. He hasn't stopped moving all day. Her voice held a hint of apology, but her happiness was real. She had never expected Emily to visit, and from her warm personality, she could tell she would be good to Lily. At her age, a parent's biggest worry was their child's marriage. It seemed that while fate had been cruel to her, it was being kind to Lily. He may be a troublemaker, but he gets things done, Emily agreed. Don't spoil him. Put him to work whenever you need to. As she spoke, she pulled Lily over to sit beside her on the edge of the bed. I've always dreamed of having a daughter as sweet as Lily. Sophia, you have no idea. My daughter can practically tear the roof down. All grown up, and the only thing she can make is instant ramen. Her entire vocabulary consists of Mom, I'm hungry, and Mom, what's for dinner? She beamed at Lily. This little girl's cooking is better than mine, and I've been doing it for decades. It seemed the grass really was greener on the other side. When it came to Lily, Emily could list 100 virtues. When it came to Lucas, it was, ugh, this useless son of mine. The world in which only Lucas was hurt was now complete. Perhaps at Robert's instruction, Emily kept the conversation light, avoiding any serious talk about the kids' relationship or marriage. It was purely a get-well visit, making it feel less like a meeting of future in-laws. After about half an hour, Emily got up to leave. Lucas suspected this was also part of his dad's plan. Otherwise, with her personality, she would have insisted on staying to help. I have some things to take care of at work, so I'll head out, Emily said gently. She patted Lucas on the head. This one is useful. If you need anything, just make him do it. Mom, if you say that one more time, I'm running away from home. Lucas joked. Emily's eyes widened. Really? You promise? It had been so long since Sophia had laughed so genuinely. In fact, she hadn't really had any friends since Lily's father passed away. She found her future in-law's girlish personality delightful. Even Lily couldn't help but hide a small smile. Late that night, since there was still so much to do early the next morning, Lucas decided not to go home. The hospital provided only one cot for visitors, and while they could have requested another, it felt awkward for him to sleep in the room. So like many other visitors, he rented a folding bed and set it up in the hallway. After a quick chat with Jason, Lucas closed his eyes, ready for sleep. The long day had exhausted him. Just as he was drifting off, he heard a soft voice. Lucas, what is it? He looked up to see Lily peeking out of the room. Are you thirsty? Nope. A few minutes later. Lucas, are you hungry? He sighed. I'm not hungry. Lucas, are you? He couldn't take it anymore. He pulled her onto the narrow cot with him. What is it you really want? He asked with a low chuckle. I can't sleep. Lily whispered. Maybe, if you kiss me. Lucas glanced around. Seeing no night shift nurses or security cameras, he pressed a gentle kiss to her lips. Her mother was sleeping just inside the room. There was something thrilling about playing with fire right under her nose. Lily, satisfied, slipped back into the room. 10 minutes later, Lucas's eyes shot open. Great. Now he couldn't sleep. He had the distinct feeling he'd just been played. The next morning, as his alarm blared, Lucas groggily opened his eyes and found himself staring directly into a pair of beautiful ones. It happened so fast that his brain didn't even have time to register surprise. It was captivated by her beauty before it could process the shock. A perv to the very end. Seeing him awake, Lily, who had been crouching by his cot to watch him, scrambled to her feet, her eyes darting around nervously, avoiding his gaze. Did you not sleep well? She asked, trying to change the subject. Lucas sat up, rubbing his head. Some vixen came and took advantage of me last night, then just left. I was so mad I couldn't sleep a wink. Good night kisses, he decided, were not for couples in the honeymoon phase. They were a recipe for insomnia. That's not what happened, Lily stammered, a guilty flush on her cheeks. Kissing her own boyfriend couldn't possibly be considered crime. So you're not denying it, just changing the details? Lucas looked up at her, a smirk playing on his lips. You admit to your scandalous behavior last night. Lily clammed up. He was infuriating. He was much cuter when he was asleep. If only he were a little dumber, she could give him a taste of his own medicine. A few seconds later, she sat down on the edge of the cot and began to gently massage his temples. Let me get my payment back, Lucas demanded. Her touch and voice were incredibly gentle. It's morning now. There are people around. She looked at the dark circles under his eyes. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice full of remorse. Lucas waved it off. It's fine. It's not all your fault. Jason roped me into a late-night game of TFT. He's at least half to blame. He had been 1 unit away from a 3-star 5-cost champion, and the game just wouldn't give it to him. He was already sleepless, and that loss just made it worse. Lily pouted, feeling like her guilt had been completely wasted. But she continued to massage his temples seriously, and just before she left, she leaned down and gave his hand a light bite. Lucas stared dumbly at the faint teeth marks on his right hand, blinked, and then broke into a slow smile. It hadn't hurt at all. The dork didn't have the heart to use any force. Still, did this count as domestic abuse? While he was lost in thought, a group of doctors in white coats entered the hospital room. He followed them inside. No need to be nervous. Just try to stay calm, one of the taller doctors said kindly to Sophia. Seeing Lucas, he turned. You must be Robert's boy. Remember me? Hello, sir, Lucas replied with a quick smile, though he honestly had no idea who the man was. It was a safe bet. Not confirming or denying usually created the illusion of memory. Making this much money at your age, you're even more impressive than your old man, the doctor said with a laugh. He glanced over at Lily, who was tidying up. You two have the same good taste in partners. Lily tilted her head, confused, but the anxiety of the impending surgery left her no time to dwell on it. After a few more words of encouragement and some small talk with Lucas, the doctors left. As the last one walked out, a girl with a mischievous grin slipped in through the closing door. Sophia's eyes widened in recognition. Aaron, you're here. Lily only had one real friend before Lucas, and Aaron had been over for dinner before, so Sophia remembered her well. Yep, came to see how you're doing, Aaron said, her signature canine tooth showing when she smiled. Sophia's expression softened. Why didn't you go home for the summer? Aaron's smile vanished, replaced by a scowl directed at Lucas for the all-nighter he'd forced her to pull. Because I'm working for him. The worst part about working late wasn't the work itself. It was seeing your boss's online status as in-game while you were slaving away. You two really have a proper business then, Sophia said, impressed. She didn't know much about companies, and Lily hadn't told her many details. It was only when Lucas had gravely offered to pay for everything that she'd gotten a glimpse of the situation. His family was wealthier than she'd imagined, and Lucas was far more capable than she'd known. She vaguely recalled people saying that rich city men were all bad, constantly cheating on their wives. Her only impression of them came from watching Desperate Housewives years ago. She glanced at Lucas, who was now bickering with Lily over who got to pack a bag, and a heartfelt smile spread across her face. My son-in-law isn't like that at all. Around 8:30, a nurse came to take Sophia to the operating room. Lily, who was already a bundle of nerves, grew even more tense. It was as if she were the one having surgery. Sophia was calm, but Lily's face was pale. She held her mother's hand tightly, only letting go at the very last second as the gurney passed through the doors. Her own hand fell to her side, limp and trembling. A moment later, a warm, strong hand enveloped hers. Lily froze, then slowly turned her head to look at Lucas. He gave her a gentle smile. It's okay. I'm here. Get a room, you two, Aaron huffed, pushing them toward the waiting area outside the OR. The doors to the operating room were shut tight. With no one else around, the waiting area was eerily quiet. The only sound was the faint hum of the bright green sign that read surgery in progress. Lucas sat silently on the metal bench, his chin resting on his hand, lost in thought. Anyone else could afford to panic, but he couldn't. Aaron and Lily sat beside him, both looking anxious. Seeing Lucas's calm demeanor, Lily felt her own fear subside. A wave of dizziness washed over her as she was struck, for the first time in her life, by the profound comfort of having someone to rely on. For someone who had always shouldered every burden alone, the feeling was overwhelming. As she was staring into space, she saw Lucas give her a cheesy, exaggerated wink. It was so obviously on purpose. A watery smile broke through her tears, though it was a little stiff, a little strained. Why don't you take her for a walk? Aaron said suddenly, her tone sharp. You're just waiting around here anyway. I can watch things by myself. Before she had even finished, Lucas was on his feet. I was just waiting for you to say that. He held his hand out to Lily, a smile on his face. Come on, stop tensing up. I'm taking you somewhere nice. After a moment's hesitation, Lily took his hand and let him pull her to her feet. She never expected he would take her back to the old neighborhood park where they had first met. It was deserted. The seniors who usually exercised here had likely already finished their morning routines and gone home. Lucas looked around, searching for ghosts of memories. He hadn't been back once since his family moved. Honestly, the details were hazy. He stared at the slide for a long time before realizing it was a new one. Kids these days probably didn't even play on slides anymore. They were probably all huddled together playing League of Legends on their phones. He felt a pang of nostalgia for the days he'd spent battling with Beyblades. Just as he was thinking this, Lily stopped beside him. "This is where you first talked to me," she said softly, pointing to a spot near the bench. Lucas looked at her, surprised. "You remember that clearly?" She nodded, her gaze fixed on the spot, as if replaying the memory. "They wouldn't tell me how sick my dad was. I figured it out on my own. Kids know less, but they're not stupid." She turned to meet his eyes. "For my mom and me, it felt like the sky was falling. Even as a little kid, I just kept thinking, what are we going to do now?" Lucas remained silent, just listening. "I couldn't understand why everyone else had a dad, but I was about to lose mine. I felt like I couldn't breathe, so I ran away from home and came here. For a long time, I always wondered why so much suffering had to happen to me. But not anymore." A sweet, radiant smile spread across her face, lighting up her eyes. "Because fate let me meet you." How could she be so beautiful when she smiles? It was the only thought in Lucas's head. For some reason, it reminded him of a quote he'd once read. Never believe that suffering is worth it. Dwelling on past or present hardships was meaningless. The important thing was to find a solution while always keeping your heart open to the sun. The clouds would always part eventually. To lose the ability to smile just as the light broke through, that was true defeat. But this dork was far stronger than he'd ever imagined. She had one. Lucas smiled and took her hand. "I don't think I ever got to play with you back then," he said gently. "Let me do it now." He started pulling her toward the slide, but Lily resisted. "That's so childish. I bet you've never played on one of these in your life." After all, by the time she would ever return to this park, she was already a college student. Lucas scoffed, dragging her to the base of the tall slide. It might be childish for elementary schoolers, but for college students, it's just right. He led by example, climbing up the ladder. The steps that had seemed so challenging as a child were now easily conquered. He even had to duck his head at the top. "Here I come," he shouted with a laugh. But because he was so tall, his feet touched the ground almost as soon as he started sliding. He blinked, nonplussed. It had felt so much longer when he was a kid. Lily turned her head, trying to hide a giggle. Seeing her silent laughter, Lucas felt no embarrassment at all, striding over to pull her into the game with him. "Well, she learned she can't get away with laughing at me. I'm always watching you." Finally, through a combination of coaxing and pushing, he got her to the top of the slide. "Come on, slide down," he urged, a grin on his face. Lily looked down at him, then at the slide that now seemed comically short for her adult frame. A mischievous idea struck her. She put one foot on the railing. "Catch me," she said. Big kids needed their own ways of being childish. Lucas stared for a second, and then she leaped. She squeezed her eyes shut, but before she could even feel the sensation of falling, he had rushed forward and caught her. It was the first time she had ever been held in a princess carry, and it wasn't at all how she'd imagined it. "If I were any weaker, I wouldn't have caught you," Lucas said, his tone scolding. Honestly, how could one little dork have such a wild side? Lily wrapped her arms tightly around his neck and smiled faintly. "No, you wouldn't have. My boyfriend is the strongest." Lucas preened, holding her even tighter. "You can play however you want. After all, I only said if." For the rest of the morning, Lucas had Lily try everything he used to do as a kid. He even borrowed a remote control airplane from a little boy and flew it for a while. Finally exhausted, they walked hand in hand, the simple touch calming Lily's frayed nerves. So many years later, she was back in this special place. Some things were the same, but so much was different. "Let's go back," Lucas said. Whatever the future held, she wouldn't have to face it alone. After another 3 hours of waiting outside the operating room, the doors that had seemed permanently sealed finally slid open. A sharp, capable-looking doctor with glasses emerged. "How is she?" Before Lucas could even get up, Lily, who was normally so shy, rushed to the doctor's side, her voice trembling with urgency. The procedure went very well. With today's medical technology, this kind of situation is quite manageable. The rest depends on her post-op recovery, but she will definitely be able to walk again. Oh, and the most important thing is physical therapy. She can't stop. A good recovery is what will allow her to walk without a cane. It was a standard reminder, but for someone who had lost the use of their legs, it was unnecessary. They cherished the chance more than anyone. Her muscles have atrophied significantly, so it may be a long road. Be prepared for that. The doctor pulled at his mask and looked at Lily. You did a good job. If it weren't for your consistent massages, her condition wouldn't be this optimistic. With that, he turned and went back inside, a pensive look on his face. He wondered if he could have done the same, massaging his mother's legs day after day for years. For a moment, he honestly didn't know the answer. Later, wrapped in Lucas's arms, Lily cried for a long, long time. A week later, against the doctor's advice to stay for a few more days of observation, Sophia insisted on being discharged. She wasn't even on it 4 anymore. They were just monitoring her, and she could do that just as well at home. She knew enough to understand the cost difference between a private room and a shared one. Lucas pushed the wheelchair while Lily, a canvas tote bag slung over her shoulder, walked quietly beside him. I owe you both so much, Sophia said softly. Sophia, you're all better, Lucas said cheerfully, ignoring her comment. Next time my mom tries to ground me, you have to protect me. Of course, Sophia laughed, nodding. The three of them walked down the alley, their cheerful voices echoing off the walls before they disappeared around a corner. A single ray of morning sun finally broke through the clouds, piercing the quiet alley and illuminating a dewdrop on a blade of grass by the wall. It sparkled like a perfect tiny diamond. It was the end of August, and the start of the semester was just around the corner. Lucas felt like the summer had vanished in the blink of an eye. Then again, he didn't get a summer vacation anymore. He suddenly felt the urge to curse someone out. Humans weren't naturally diligent creatures. Even when you were your own boss, you still didn't want to go to work. The older he got, the more he realized that childhood vacations were the best. After several straight days of rain, the sun was finally showing itself. Lucas dragged himself out of bed and shambled to the bathroom like a zombie. The studio had been less hectic lately, so he was staying at his off-campus apartment. It wasn't that he had issues with his parents. It was just that spending too much time at home tended to lead to friction. Distance really did make the heart grow fonder, even with family. 10 minutes later, Lucas was on the sofa, staring at his laptop, analyzing progress reports and revenue data. The 30% profit margin from the Facebook Instant Games platform was brutal. When you earned $100,000 but only took home 30, you didn't feel like you'd made 30 grand. You felt like you'd lost 70. That's exactly how he felt now. He had to support an entire company on that 30%. It was fine for now, but if he wanted to scale up, he needed a new strategy. Eventually, they would have to go the legitimate route and get their own game certification. A few thousand a month in personal income was nice, but people were greedy. Once one desire was met, a new one always took its place. He wanted to give Lily a better life, a much better one. If he were alone, he'd probably just find an easy job to pay the bills. But since being with Lily, that thought had vanished completely. No need to rush, he muttered to himself. Let's ride this wave first. Trying to get rich overnight was a dangerous game. Just then, there were 2 soft knocks on the door. He walked over, curious, and opened it to find a girl in a long dress standing there, a gentle smile on her face. If a spring breeze could take human form, it would be the shape of her smile. Can I help you, beautiful? Lucas asked with a grin. Jerk, Lily huffed, stepping inside to change her shoes. There were slippers waiting for her at both his apartment and his parents' house. The small gesture always made her feel cherished. Then you've come to the right place, he said, wrapping his arms around her from behind. He loved this position. He could rest his chin on her shoulder and steal a soft kiss on her neck. Lily jumped, struggling playfully. Stop it, I haven't even changed my shoes yet. She knew it was useless to fight, so a token resistance was enough. So I can mess with you after your shoes are off? No. After getting his fun in, Lucas went to turn on the AC and returned to the sofa, this time crossing his legs. Being young was tough. All he'd done was hug her from behind, and now he had the AC remote in his pants again. Lily sat next to him, peering curiously at his laptop. I thought you were busy helping your mom with her physical therapy. What brings you here? He asked with a chuckle. Because I missed you, Lily said, closing her eyes and hugging him. She had spent the last 2 days helping Sophia with low-intensity exercises. Her mother could already take 2 steps without holding onto anything. It was only 2 steps, but it had been enough to move Lily to tears. In her mind, time away from Lucas was measured in seconds. 2 days was an eternity. She was starting to understand just how tragic Romeo and Juliet's story was. A quiet smile played on Lucas's lips as he scrolled through his computer with one hand and stroked her hair with the other. He felt like he was petting a cat. Isn't our anniversary coming up soon? He asked suddenly. Lily jumped. Does he have mind-reading powers? She nodded slightly. I think so. Lucas wrapped a strand of her hair around his finger. I'll clear my schedule for that day. We'll go out and do something fun. Okay, she replied happily. Seeing her so much brighter now, he felt more certain than ever that the money had been well spent. The chains were finally off. She could do whatever she wanted. Though right now, it seemed like all she wanted was to be stuck to his side. That was fine by him. Your boyfriend made another few $1,000s, he said, a satisfied smile on his face. Let's go out for a nice dinner to celebrate on our anniversary. How about I cook for you at home? She asked, looking up at him. Why? To save money. Lily looked embarrassed. A nice dinner out costs hundreds of dollars. Lucas was speechless. He showed her the revenue report on his screen. Lily, your boyfriend is making thousands of dollars a month now. You could eat out every single day, and we'd still have money left over. He expected her to be amazed, but she just blinked and sighed. Now he was completely baffled. What are you sighing about? Bragging about his income to this dork was pointless. She just didn't care. It was great having a girlfriend who wasn't materialistic, but it did take some of the fun out of making money. Lily pouted. I wish I could make that much money. Then I could be your sugar mama. You could be my sugar mama now, Lucas said. I'm very low maintenance. Her eyes lit up. She sat up straight. Really? If I give you a present, will you come home with me? She reached for her canvas tote bag. Lucas leaned in, intrigued. What kind of present? Lily pulled out a medium-sized box, carefully wrapped in a t-shirt to protect it. I don't really know much about these. Erin helped me pick it out. She fidgeted with her fingers, unable to look at him. I hope you like it. Lucas unwrapped it and stared at the DSLR camera in his hands. His expression was complicated. Since she couldn't pay back the fundraiser money ahead of schedule, she must have moved up her timeline for buying him the camera. He suddenly felt that if Lily asked for his life, he wouldn't hesitate for a second. This camera must have cost a fortune. You're willing to buy this, but not to go out for a nice dinner. It's different. I'm happy eating anything, she said seriously. Lucas fell silent. He looked at the nervous, stubborn girl in front of him and leaned in again. The living room, which had been filled with conversation just moments before, fell quiet, punctuated only by the soft sounds of breathing. A long while later, they broke apart. Lucas lay back on the sofa, looking at the girl curled up beside him. Now that school's starting, you won't have to work so many part-time jobs, will you? Just tutoring Emma should be enough to cover the fundraiser payments, right? Lily hummed in agreement. I almost don't know what to do with myself now. She had been like a wind-up doll, constantly in motion. Now that the spring had been released, she felt adrift, unsure of what came next. You experience life, obviously. Find a hobby. Look at Erin. She spends all day slacking off and playing video games. That's a way of experiencing life, too, Lucas said casually. Isn't there anything you want to do? There is, she said, pressing her cheek against his chest, a look of pure contentment on her face. I want to be with you. Living alone had its perks. There was no way they could be this clingy at the office or back home. Lucas gently squeezed her cheek. Aren't we already together? Yeah, Lily said softly. So, I just want to stay like this forever. When she looked up, Lucas was smiling down at her. Look at you. No ambition at all. That got a rise out of her. She shot to her feet. You take that back or I'll run into you. You run into me, and I'll kiss you. The threat instantly deflated her. She shuffled timidly to the side, looking anywhere but at him, before finally darting into the kitchen. What are you doing? Lucas asked, following her. Just checking to see what you need, Lily said, tapping a finger against her lips in thought. I forgot to get MSG and cumin last time. She was still determined to cook lunch for him every day. Otherwise, she knew he'd get busy and forget to eat, or just order takeout. It had happened before. He knew how to cook, but he'd still just grab whatever was convenient or skip meals entirely. Seriously, you should just stay here for lunch once the semester starts. I'm not always going to be back at noon anyway, Lucas said, leaning against the doorframe. Otherwise, you won't even have a place to nap. It's not going to be summer forever. You'll catch a cold sleeping in that gazebo. He was being completely serious. If she was worried about him taking advantage, he could just stay at the office through lunch. It's too soon for that, she mumbled, her cheeks flushing. It's a nap, Lily, not moving in together, he pressed, trying to reframe it for her. You're just coming here for a nap. We're purely platonic, so what's there to be afraid of? Can a couple really be purely platonic? Lily froze. How did he twist words so easily? Did you ever have kids together before it wasn't platonic anymore? We just kiss and cuddle. We haven't done anything else. Of course we're a platonic couple, Lucas said with a shrug. Otherwise, what's the point of me renting a 2-bedroom apartment? It's a total waste of money. This is prime real estate near campus. The rent is insane. The same guy who was just bragging about making tens of thousands a month was suddenly pinching pennies. Lily was completely taken in, and somehow what he was saying started to make sense. Well, okay then, but I'll lock the door. As much as she adored him, some boundaries had to be maintained. She wasn't ready to be planning a baby shower before a wedding. Lucas's hands always tended to wander whenever they kissed, forcing her to grab them to keep them in check. She didn't trust his claims of being a perfect gentleman for a second. She would believe almost anything he said, but not that. Jerk, she thought with a huff. Which room do you want, he asked. The master and the second bedroom were about the same size, though the master had a slightly larger, better quality bed. They were right next to each other, sharing a wall. Lily stood between the two doors, suddenly too shy to look inside. She turned to him. Which one are you using? Lucas pointed to the room on the left. The second one. I saved the master for you. He gave her a wicked grin, his mental abacus clicking away. Make me lunch every day, and I won't even charge you rent. Great deal, right? The moment she had shown the slightest hesitation, she was destined to fall into the trap he'd laid. If they were really going to spend time here, even just for lunch, the place needed to feel like a home. They got to work, seriously organizing the apartment until everything was neat and tidy. It felt, surprisingly, like they were building a life together. They worked straight through until evening. The sky had been overcast for days, and what should have been a bright late afternoon was already dark enough to need lights. I'll make you dinner before I go, came Lily's soft voice from the kitchen. Otherwise, you'll just order takeout again. Okay, Lucas said, stretching as he walked to the balcony. A sudden flash of white light made him freeze. A few seconds later, a low rumble of thunder followed. Rain again? How many days has it been? Before long, the scene outside became spectacular. Lightning tore across the sky, accompanied by crashing thunder. It looked like someone was trying to ascend to godhood out there. The flashes were so frequent, they were like a strobe light, fast and unnerving. At first, the wind drove raindrops against the window like a volley of bullets. Then it became a solid sheet of water, blurring the entire world outside. Lily, however, seemed completely unconcerned. She walked over to him calmly. Be careful on your way back later. I don't have my car, Lucas said, his eyes glazed over as he stared at the downpour. Now they were both stunned. It was true. Jason's car had stalled out and was in the shop, so he'd borrowed Lucas's early that morning. Do you have an umbrella? She asked, biting her lip. Lucas blinked. Nope. One should never expect a guy to keep a spare umbrella at home. For them, walking in the rain was just business as usual. Sometimes it was even invigorating. Lily was too embarrassed to say something like, well, maybe your dad can bring your car over, so she just sank onto the sofa, hugging her knees tightly. Small, pitiful, and helpless. The rain was coming down, so hard you'd be soaked just running to a taxi. I'll call Jason and have him bring my car back, Lucas said, dialing his number. Jason picked up right away. Hey, bring my car back, man. I have to drive Lily home, he urged. It's getting late. All right, hold on. Whoa, is it raining that hard? Jason paused. My aunt's mother-in-law's nephews. Someone in the family got in an accident. I have to go to the hospital. I really can't bring your car back right now. Do you even know how you're related to that person? Lucas asked, his face a grim mask. Phone's about to die, gotta go. Sorry, bro. I'll get it back to you by tomorrow latest. Jason hung up, and his phone went straight to voicemail. It seemed Lucas's comment about it being late had created some kind of misunderstanding, putting them on completely different wavelengths. You goddamn player. I hope your whole family gets a flat tire. Lucas grumbled internally, debating whether to call his dad, Robert. No, can't do that. Even if he was acting like a perfect gentleman trying to get Lily home safely, his ulterior motive in renting a two-bedroom apartment would be painfully obvious. He pulled 2 sodas from the fridge, chugging half of one. The cold carbonation cleared his head. It had to be an ice-cold Coke. You want one? He asked, holding the other can out to her. My period's not here yet, Lily whispered, still hugging her knees, her fingers twisting together anxiously. But it's still too early. Please, can we not? Huh? Lucas tilted his head, a ring of question marks appearing around it. It took him a second to process what she'd said. Whoa, I swear that's not what I meant, he exclaimed. Who's been teaching you all this crazy stuff? Erin did. She said if you ever offered me ice water, I should say I can't drink that, I'm on my period, or else you try to take me to a hotel. Lucas had never felt so wrongfully accused in his life. How did Erin, who had never even been on a date, know so much relationship theory? Where's she learning this stuff? Well, you didn't say what she taught you, he pointed out. Lily looked genuinely scared, her eyes shimmering. But her voice, though trembling, was firm. Because I don't want to lie to you. Lucas froze for a moment before reaching over and flipping on the living room lights. He couldn't let this dork see the look on his face after she'd just landed a critical hit like that. He'd have to be more careful. She never initiated any flirting, but her passive counterflirts were devastating enough to one-shot his entire health bar. Who could withstand that? The overhead light flooded the dim room, making Lucas squint. He walked over to her and gently pulled her into an embrace. Hey, don't misunderstand. Don't think about all that crazy stuff. We agreed to take it slow. She leaned against him, still hugging her knees, and gave a barely audible image. Then he poked her forehead. Lily Thompson, you don't have enough faith in your boyfriend's character, he said, feigning annoyance. This made him sound like some creep preying on an innocent girl. But as he said it, he did a little self-reflecting. Though he tried to control the pace of their relationship, he had been a little too eager, which might have made her feel insecure. The problem was she was just too easy to tease. She never really resisted, aside from stopping his hands from wandering. It made him unconsciously push the boundaries. That wasn't right. If he let this sweet girl think he was only after her body, he'd be in serious trouble. He had to nip any misunderstandings in the bud. If they piled up without being addressed, they would eat away at their relationship like termites, silent and destructive. By the time they realized they were just going through the motions, it would be too late. Just as he was about to speak, Lily beat him to it. I'm sorry. I do trust you, I really do. I don't know what to do. Her voice was small. I've never had any friends besides Aaron. I don't know what dating is supposed to be like. Apparently, Lucas wasn't the only one doing some soul-searching. Lily thought about the other girls in her classes, who all seemed to think physical intimacy was no big deal. Only she was so scared and timid. A horrible thought crept in her mind. Was she the weird one? I've told you this before, Lucas said, resting his chin on the top of her head, his voice gentle. Every couple has their own way of being together. The pace is different for everyone. Why should we care what other people do? He tightened his hug. As long as you're happy, and I'm happy, then what we have is normal. These things were about mutual consent. Some people waited until marriage. Others slept together the day they made it official. There was no right or wrong way. It was their freedom, as long as they were on the same page. Honestly, Lucas didn't really care about that stuff. He could wait until they were married. As long as it was her in the end, it was worth it. For now, just being able to hold her like this was more than enough. I think I'm making progress, she said, tilting her head up and pressing a soft, quick kiss to his lips. A smile tugged at Lucas's mouth. He suppressed the urge to tease her and said, Of course, you're always making progress, but you were already the best girlfriend in the world. She was a world away from the girl who used to shy away from a simple kiss on the forehead. She was trying harder than he could imagine. Really? She asked, her eyes full of doubt. Absolutely. I've seen other couples, and trust me, nobody's girlfriend is as amazing as mine, Lucas said with complete sincerity. It was, in his opinion, a fact. They stayed like that for a while. Lily looked out at the curtain of rain. Dinner's not done yet, she whispered. What do you want to eat? Whatever's fine. Something simple. Lucas's gaze also drifted to the window, and he zoned out. A moment later, Lily bumped his chin with the top of her head. Why do you keep staring outside? He turned to her with a grin. Are you jealous of the rain now? No, I was just thinking that with you here, even a rainy day feels different. He wrapped his arms around her slender waist, listening to the relentless drumming of rain against the glass, and slowly closed his eyes. This feeling of tranquility was something he'd never experienced before. It was profoundly peaceful, as if even his breathing had slowed. The more the storm raged outside, the safer and cozier it felt inside. It was an intoxicating comfort, a feeling you could get lost in. I feel that way too, Lily whispered, tracing patterns on his palm. But for me, every day has been different since I met you. She reluctantly let go of his hand and stood up, heading back to the kitchen. Lucas heard the click of the gas stove and smiled to himself. He opened his laptop to get some work done. He had to appreciate these days of working from home. If the company really took off, he'd be a lot busier than this. But before long, his eyes drifted shut, and he fell into a deep sleep. After all, there was nothing more comforting than sleeping on a rainy day. When Lily finished cooking and came back into the living room, she was slipping a hair tie onto her wrist like a bracelet when she saw him. He was curled up on his side on the sofa, his laptop still cradled in his arms. He looked kind of adorable. She tiptoed over, carefully lifting the laptop from his grasp and setting it on the coffee table. Her movements were slow and deliberate, terrified of waking him. She noticed the dark circles under his eyes, glanced at the clock, and then sat down quietly beside him. You can sleep a little longer. Seeing him look so tired made her heart ache. She didn't care how much money he made. This startup was his dream, and that's why she supported it. It was that simple. 15 minutes later, Lily was still sitting there. She covered her mouth with her hand and let out a huge yawn. Okay, if he sleeps any longer, dinner's gonna get cold. Hey, wake up, she said softly, patting his shoulder. No response. She puffed out her cheeks, then knelt in front of him. Seeing his sleeping face, a mischievous impulse took over. She reached out and pinched his nose shut. He just opened his mouth to breathe, so she used her other hand to cover his mouth. That did the trick. He shot upright. Just as his hand was about to grab her wrist, she zipped away. I hold a grudge, Lucas said, his voice thick with sleep, his eyelids heavy. Time for dinner? Lily suggested, crouching innocently behind the coffee table, the picture of compliance. Dinner was sautéed potatoes and peppers with a side of barbecue wings. Lily had stocked his fridge a while ago, but she hadn't realized Lucas never cooked for himself at home. All those fresh ingredients were just sitting there while he ordered takeout. If it weren't such a long trip from her place, she'd want to come over and cook every single meal for him. Takeout just wasn't as healthy as a home-cooked meal. Maybe it's the rain, but I'm getting sleepy, Lily said, rubbing her eyes as she served him a plate. Lucas was finally starting to wake up. I heard it's hardwired into our DNA. Back in the day, people couldn't hunt or farm when it rained, so they just stayed home and slept. The habit stuck. Lily took a bite of a chicken wing he'd put on her plate. What did they do when they were stuck at home? Was it like this for them? She didn't spend much time on her phone, but she always imagined people in ancient times must have been incredibly bored. They probably made babies, Lucas said matter-of-factly. Why do you think people back then had so many kids? Besides the high infant mortality rate, it was because they had way too much downtime. Lily's face turned pink. She regretted asking the question and silently picked up some vegetables, holding them to his lips. Just eat, please, just eat and stop talking. My girlfriend's cooking is the best, he said with a soft laugh. You'll get tired of it eventually. Never. I could love it for a lifetime, just like I love you. Lily pretended to focus on her food, hiding her smile behind her bowl. The apartment was quiet, filled only with the soft murmur of their conversation. She would ask him innocent, adorable questions, and he would answer patiently. The thought that this could one day be his daily life sparked a single idea in Lucas's mind. Man, future me is so damn lucky. He'd never imagined he would one day be jealous of his own future self. After dinner, Lucas insisted on washing the dishes. Seeing that the rain showed no signs of letting up, Lily nervously called Sophia. Hello, she said, standing by the balcony, twisting the hem of her shirt. Her voice was thin and lacked confidence. The familiar voice came through the phone. Honey, what's wrong? Mom, I can't get home. It took her a while to explain the situation properly, since she'd started with the wrong point. Strangely, Sophia didn't seem as worried as she'd expected. Lily couldn't tell if her mom trusted her or Lucas more. She sighed, a mix of curiosity and confusion. Here she was practically in the lion's den, and her mom wasn't the least bit concerned. She tiptoed to the kitchen doorway and peeked in at Lucas's tall, focused silhouette. Well, she thought, if I'm going to be eaten by a lion, at least he's a handsome and gentle one. You can go take a shower first, Lucas said suddenly. Lily jumped. What did you know I was here? He turned the water down to reduce the noise. Because we're on the same wavelength. She huffed. I don't believe you. Because I love you, he offered as an alternative. Though her heart fluttered, her curiosity grew. Seriously, how did you know? Silly. Lucas sounded exasperated that his smooth lines had been wasted. You got off the phone and then went completely silent. No footsteps, nothing. You're not just going to stand on the balcony staring at the rain, so you must have been sneaking a peek at me. See? It's because I love you. Why else would I be paying such close attention to you? Lily smiled faintly and walked up behind him, wrapping her arms around his waist. The thought that this might be our life in the future makes me so happy. Then you should just live here every day. The words were barely out of his mouth before she bumped him with her head. Why are you still watching? If you go shower now, there's a slightly smaller chance I'll come peek. I'm busy after all, he urged. I don't have a change of clothes. She said timidly. Girls are so much work. He grumbled internally, but his voice was soft. You can wear mine. Just find something in my room. Okay. Lily gently poked aside. I'll hit you if you peek. Has it occurred to you that you could just lock the door? Oh, right. After washing the dishes, Lucas sat in the living room for a bit. Soon, Lily emerged from the bathroom, moving sideways like a crab. She was wearing his t-shirt and shorts. The white tee was huge on her, the hem almost completely covering the shorts, making it look like she was wearing nothing underneath but the shirt. Below were her long, fair legs. Why do you only have shorts? She complained, her voice trembling. Lucas scratched his head. Because I barely wear them. All my long pants are in the laundry. You probably saw them in the bathroom. Lily took a step this way, then a step that way. Realizing there was nowhere to hide, she steeled herself, walked over to the sofa, and sat down next to him. Just as Lucas started to get up, she grabbed his arm. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Wait a little before you go in." "Why?" Lily looked embarrassed. "It's just, weird if you go in right after I come out." Lucas sighed with a wry smile and sat back down, trying his best to focus on the laptop screen and not the pair of bright legs in his peripheral vision. It was a monumental effort for any normal guy. After a few minutes, he received her permission and escaped the living room. Lily sat primly on the sofa, not daring to move. She glanced down at her legs, which only made her more nervous. She had just taken a few deep breaths when a howl of pain came from the bathroom. "Lily, are you trying to boil me alive?" She blinked, utterly bewildered, and muttered to herself, "It wasn't hot." The time it takes a guy to shower versus a girl is a world apart. A few minutes later, Lucas was done and opened the bathroom door. Lily stared for a second, then instantly covered her eyes. "Why aren't you wearing clothes?" "I'm just not wearing a shirt. I have pants on." "The way you say that is really misleading," he said, exasperated. He walked back to his room and threw on a random t-shirt. He'd never wasted time coordinating outfits. If it was wearable, it was good enough. "Let me dry your hair for you." Okay, with nothing else to do, they decided to watch a movie. Lucas let her pick, and she chose The Legend of 1900. They turned off the lights and cuddled together on the sofa, the only light coming from the laptop screen, which illuminated the two of them, who had, at some point, started kissing. Much later, with the movie still playing, Lucas held her hand in his, kneading it gently. He sighed. "I need to buy you some hand cream or something. We have to get rid of these calluses." "Does it not feel good to touch?" she asked in a small voice. "It's not about that. It makes my heart ache," he said honestly. Lily squeezed her eyes shut, forcing back tears, and snuggled deeper into his arms. Why didn't he get off the ship? After the movie ended, Lily recalled the image of the ship sinking into the sea, her expression mournful. Having lost a loved one herself, she couldn't understand the act of willingly ending one's own life. There were so many people like her father who fought to live but couldn't. Life was something to be cherished. Lucas stroked her soft, long hair. For a lot of people, there are things more important than life itself. For 1900, that ship was his entire world. Off the ship, there was no music, only an unfamiliar land and an uncertain future. It was deeply tied to the historical context of the film, but explaining all that to her would be getting too sidetracked. Lily blinked, as if she partly understood. "Like what?" Lucas leaned down and kissed her forehead. "Like you in my eyes," he said softly. It was nearly 11 o'clock. The rain had subsided to a drizzle, more than light enough to call a cab. But Lucas didn't notice, and Lily didn't notice either. Perhaps they truly didn't look, or perhaps they had made a tacit agreement to ignore it. In the quiet summer night after the storm, lights in the surrounding buildings went out one by one, leaving only the chirping of crickets and the croaking of frogs to fill the air. "It's amazing you can still hear frogs in an old apartment complex like this," Lucas said, standing up and fumbling his way to the bathroom in the dark. Lily sat stunned for a moment before she saw him return with a basin of water. "Be careful not to spill it." Though she had no idea what he was doing, she warned him softly. "Should I turn on the light?" "Only if you want me to stare at your legs all night." The words made her, having just stood up, immediately sit back down, pulling the hem of her t-shirt lower. Then she was faced with a serious dilemma, which to reveal, her neck or her legs. While she hesitated, Lucas had already placed the basin on the coffee table in front of her. "Put your hands in," he said gently, testing the water temperature. "Huh? What huh?" "I heard that soaking them like this for a while can help with calluses." In the darkness, Lily could just make out the faint outline of his face. A wave of emotion washed over her. She leaned forward and obediently placed her hands in the basin. The water was warm, not hot. Perfect. She didn't know when it started, but a sense of peace she had never felt before settled over her. It was as if she didn't have to worry about a single thing in the world. It was a magical feeling. Is this what it feels like to be cared for? "Yours might be a bit more serious, so you'll need to soak them for a while," Lucas muttered to himself. "This should work. It's how I got rid of the calluses on my fingers when I was learning guitar." Before he could finish, Lily reached out, her hands like an octopus, and pulled his into the water with hers. She looked up at him and smiled, a rare flash of mischief in her eyes. "I don't need to soak mine," he said with a laugh. She tightened her grip. "This way, I can soak them longer. They'd be lonely in here by themselves." "You're such a dork," he said, but he stopped resisting. Their hands played in the water, tickling and intertwining, their fingers lacing together. The water sloshed and splashed, never settling. "We should take a bath together sometime." Lily huffed. "No way. Lucas cleared his throat. Just kidding. There's no bathtub here. He paused. Then his head shot up. But if I buy a house with a bathtub, would you join me then? Lily was speechless. Do all guys turn to shameless flirts after getting a girlfriend? A while later, Lucas emptied the water and returned to the sofa, pulling her into his arms. Got anything going on tomorrow? He asked softly. Nope. Lily sighed without realizing it. For some reason, the thought of having nothing to do gave her a sense of unease. She had to repeatedly remind herself that her mother's surgery was over to feel better. Beyond that, there was a profound sense of aimlessness, as if she had suddenly lost her purpose in life. She was finally beginning to understand what Lucas meant when he said she had never lived for herself. Lucas nodded, placing his laptop on his lap. Want to watch another movie? Lily fought back a wave of sleepiness and looked up at him. What are we watching? Before she finished her sentence, she saw the rows of horror movies on the screen. This guy is definitely up to no good. You're just trying to trick me into sleeping in your room, she said, her eyes narrowed with insight. You'll wait until I'm too scared to sleep, then you'll act all innocent and go back to your own room, waiting for me to come knocking on your door. She took a breath. And then you can do whatever you want of me. Lucas put on an exaggerated look of shock. Wow, you figured it all out. She's really thought this through, hasn't she? Lily lifted her chin proudly. I'm smarter than I look. And if I were to sneak out at night and flip the circuit breaker, how would you respond then, Your Highness? Lucas continued, playing along. I'd call the police. Lily was starting to notice a pattern. Tonight, Lucas had been physically restrained, which had put her at ease, but he was being verbally more of a flirt than usual. Was it some kind of inverse relationship? Then you wouldn't be able to see me for a long, long time. Her bravado instantly crumbled. Okay, then never mind. Lucas smirked, closing the laptop. He'd been teasing her from the start. As if I can't handle one little dorky frog. He was happy to see how much more talkative she had become since they first met. She could almost keep up with his banter now, even if he was letting her win. He hugged her tighter, his gaze fixed on the ceiling. You need to find a hobby, Lily. Do I really have to? She asked, puzzled. Of course. I was serious when I said you need to learn to enjoy life. Lily tapped her chin, thinking hard. Does trying to make money count as a hobby? Definitely not, he said, exasperated. Why would you consider that a hobby? She buried her face in his chest, wrapping her arms tightly around his waist. Because I don't want you to have to work so hard in the future, she mumbled, then reached up to stroke his cheek. You have dark circles under your eyes. From playing video games, he lied without blinking, subtly leaning away, afraid she might try to listen to his heartbeat again. That was a close one. He was almost cooked again, but his quick reflexes saved him. Let's buy you some pajamas, he said, changing the subject. Should we get a matching set? Do I need pajamas just for a nap? Why are you so sure it's only going to be naps? He thought, but he said, of course. Pajamas are comfortable. It's all part of the plan. Learning to spend money reasonably is also part of enjoying life. You're in a much better financial spot now. You should spend a little on yourself. I have to save money, she whispered. Lucas tapped the DSLR camera on the coffee table. You were willing to buy this camera, but you won't spend a little on yourself? It's okay. I'm used to it. She leaned her whole body against him again, her hand occasionally poking his stomach. Lucas stroked her hair, a complex mix of emotions swirling inside him. He followed the long strands down to her waist. Habits can be changed. You're so silly, buying such nice things for other people, but skimping on yourself. His voice was incredibly gentle. You've had it hard enough. From now on, you should be happy with your boyfriend. The future is long, but we won't be young forever. If we wait until we're old to enjoy life, we won't have the energy for it. After a bit more of his cajoling, she finally agreed. A summer nightgown was still a bit too much for her, so she carefully browsed online, comparing prices and styles, and picked out an affordable set of short-sleeve top and long pants. Unfortunately for her, the top was a button-down, which would make it all too easy for Lucas to get into trouble. I'm going to bed, Lily said, glancing at the clock. It was already past midnight. Lucas stood up with her, but he walked toward the other room. They both stopped at their respective doorways. Lock your door if you want to, but my door is always open for you, he said with a wink. Lily Thompson, if the thunder scares you, you can come to my room. He paused. Good night. Just as he was about to go in, she grabbed his arm. What's up? He asked. I'm your girlfriend. Her voice got quieter and quieter. Could you call me something else? Something else? He didn't get it at first. Could you drop the last name? She asked, biting her lip. Hearing him use her full name all the time felt a little distant, and she didn't like it. Sure, Lucas agreed immediately, though he didn't say her name out loud. It felt a little awkward. Then, can I call you Luke? She asked in a small voice, fidgeting with her fingers. You can call me whatever you want. but usually only my older relatives call me that. It'll make you sound old. I suggest we skip a few steps and you just call me honey. I'll just stick with Lucas. Lily recalled that it was, in fact, his family elders who called him that. Why did his parents give him a two-syllable name? So weird. Lucas let out a lazy yawn. He was dead tired, but she hadn't let go of his hand yet. He wasn't in a rush, so he waited patiently for her to finish whatever she had to say. Lily's grip on his hand tightened. She bit her lip, her mouth opening and closing as if she were struggling to form words. After a long moment, she finally squeezed out two, "Kiss me." Lucas blinked. Is this really happening? A long time later, she finally lowered herself from her tiptoes, gave him a lingering hug, and then let go, slipping back into her room. Good night. Night. Lucas looked at her closed door and shrugged. If you're so reluctant to leave, you could just sleep in my room. I'm a perfect gentleman. After all, girls were so strange. The next morning, the overnight rain had washed the world clean. Looking out the window, you could see little puddles dotting the landscape. The air was unusually cool, no need for the AC. No matter how late she went to bed, Lily was always an early riser. She didn't wake Lucas, instead tidying up the living room and making breakfast before nervously entering his room. Lucas was a quiet sleeper, lying on his side without snoring. Just as she was thinking this, he rolled onto his back, limbs spread out. She snuck a quick kiss on his cheek, then walked to the window and slowly drew back the curtains. It was an old building, and no matter how careful she was, the curtain rings made a grating noise. What time is it? Lucas mumbled. Lily paused, a pang of guilt hitting her for waking him. 7:30. It's still early. Close the curtains a bit more, he said, cracking one eye open. His voice was deep with sleep. She turned to look at him. Is it too bright? Yeah, I don't like it. He rolled over and pulled a pillow over his face. That's why my mom always says I'm a vampire. Can't stand the sunlight. Lily nodded, a flicker of understanding in her eyes as she closed the curtains. No wonder you like kissing my neck so much. You're learning to be fresh, he said with a laugh. This dork was starting to tease him back. The longer they were together, the more adorable he found her. I am not. Lily sat on the edge of the bed and gently took his hand. Seeing his eyes were still closed, she asked, Can you eat and then go back to sleep? He rolled across the bed toward her, still not opening his eyes. Have you ever heard the story of the ostrich and the crocodile? She tilted her head. No. Lucas held her hand. Once upon a time, there was a cute but dorky ostrich. She got very thirsty, so she went to the river for a drink. As she was drinking, a crocodile surfaced and said, This is dangerous. Be careful you don't get pulled into the river. The ostrich said, Wow, you're so nice, and kept drinking, completely ignoring the crocodile as it swam closer and closer. And then what happened? She asked, intrigued. And then the crocodile dragged her into the river. With that, Lucas wrapped an arm around her waist and pulled her onto the bed. Just like this. Lily let out a little shriek. Just as she started to struggle, he went still. All she heard was his muffled, contented voice. I'm just going to sleep a little longer. A few minutes later, Lily was being held like a teddy bear, her heart thumping against her ribs. She stared at the white ceiling, a mix of indignation and helplessness welling up inside her as she bit her lip. Mom told me when I was little not to listen to stories from people with questionable motives. After dropping Lily off at home for the time being, Lucas headed to the office. He was in a great mood. If he just kept playing the long game like this, sharing a room with her was only a matter of time, right? He swaggantly pushed open his office door to find Jason Miller sitting there, a storm cloud over his head, periodically yanking at his hair. Stop that, you're gonna go bald, Lucas said, plopping into his own chair. What is it this time? Another fight? He asked playfully. There were no problems at the company, so it had to be girl trouble. Yeah, Jason sighed, not bothering to hide it. Lucas's brow furrowed. You two have been fighting a lot lately. What was it about this time? Jason stubbed out his cigarette in an ashtray already overflowing with butts. What else? She's mad that I'm so busy. He crumpled his empty pack and threw in the trash. I've barely spent any time with her this summer. We've been giving each other the silent treatment for days. You guys can have screaming matches for all I care, but never the silent treatment, Lucas said. And besides, you don't have to do everything yourself. Learn from me. Jason clicked his tongue. I just want us to grow faster. Lucas wanted to say more, but the words got stuck. Their motivations and investments were different. While both wanted to succeed, Lucas wasn't in as much of a hurry as Jason. If you're really swamped, promote Leo Jenkins. Let him be your right-hand man, Lucas said, tapping the overflowing ashtray with a folder. You and Vanessa have been through so much. It's not worth fighting over this. Plus, no matter how hard you grind, You can't change the timeline alone. You can make the project more stable, maybe, but not faster. Jason nodded wearily and slid his phone over. Look at this. Lucas looked. The video on the screen was of their game. In the bottom left corner was a famous streamer, one of the top personalities on Twitch. A streamer that big? Lucas was surprised. Not just him. More and more people are streaming it. A flicker of pride crossed Jason's gloomy face. It's all a butterfly effect from that stunt you pulled at the convention. We haven't spent a dime on advertising. Lucas's lips curved into a smile. Looks like we're about to take off. There's bad news, too, Jason said suddenly. What bad news? There are a lot of competitors now. All of them are making the exact same type of game as ours. Lucas leaned back in his chair, unconcerned. That's not bad news. I expected this as soon as the game started getting popular. We just need to maintain our unique features and keep our future updates creative. They could be the same genre, but they can't be identical. And you can't have a purist mindset in this business. We got a head start this time, but sooner or later we'll be borrowing ideas from others too. Jason nodded in agreement. But there's one company that's different. They bought a multi-million-dollar publishing deal from some big-shot company. They're trying to beat us to the punch for when we eventually leave the social media platform. Lucas's gaze sharpened. From the very beginning, he'd never planned to stay on Facebook Instant Games forever. Jason pulled up a webpage. This one, it's a subsidiary. The investor, William Montgomery. Lucas froze. You know him? That's Scarlett's stepfather, Jason said, then cursed. Damn it. Why is he coming after us? He's not wasting his time on a small company like ours, Lucas said, his attention now fixed on the demo video of their competitor's game. After a few seconds, he smacked Jason on the back of the head. Dude, that's not the point. Did you even see this? To prevent player churn, they released a new character with a unique deck of cards every so often, adding replayability to their roguelike game. But in this video, there was a set of cards Lucas recognized immediately. Jason stared. That's the character we scrapped after internal testing. It's identical. Lucas had vetoed that character because it was completely overpowered, totally unsuitable for a game where players had to watch an ad after dying. But if it were a character you could get for a $6 introductory offer, it was perfect for a standalone game about to launch. Lucas put down the phone and took a sip of Coke, a small smile playing on his lips. The enemy is within. It finally clicked for Jason. Damn it, we have a mole. He'd never imagined that a corporate espionage plot straight out of a TV show would happen to him. His eyes shot to Lucas. So what do we do? Lucas nearly spit out his drink. What are you? A deer in the headlights. Every time something happens, you just freeze up? Seeing the look of pure, unadulterated cluelessness in his friend's eyes, he spoke again, slowly. It's not a big deal. Once or twice is fine. But if they really want to keep leeching off us, I'll make them pay it all back. Jason fidgeted with a lighter. I just can't stomach it. You need to change your mindset. Different stages have different goals. Right now, all we can do is protect our turf. When we're bigger, we can plan our revenge. Lucas pulled up the video of the top streamer playing their game again. It won't be long. The game was spreading faster than any of them could have imagined. In the internet age, when something went viral, the growth was exponential, far beyond simple word of mouth. Influencers, memes, and games could blow up overnight. How long it would last was another question. But for now, the revenue was about to reach a level none of them had ever dreamed of. I was being too impatient, Jason said, finally calming down. He couldn't understand how Lucas stayed so cool no matter what happened. When Jason first saw the news, his brain had short-circuited for who knows how long. He was anything but composed. It just reaffirmed what he'd realized soon after they became friends. This guy would succeed at whatever he put his mind to. Lucas shrugged. So go make up with your girlfriend. The company is on track to basically print money as long as we maintain stability. Why can't you have it all? Love and a career. What about the mole? Jason asked. Lucas was still nonchalant. I told you, I'm only giving him one chance. Once we get bigger, they won't have access to our core secrets anyway. Don't worry about it. Just mention it to Leo. If he can find the person, great. If not, whatever. Don't waste time on it. The art team wouldn't have access to this kind of thing, so the leak had to have come from the programming team. And after observing them for a while, Lucas wasn't satisfied with any of them except Leo. The artists could all be promoted in the future, but the programmers couldn't keep up with their needs. He'd have to hire people with more experience for that. That was the real reason Lucas wasn't worried about a mole on the programming team. Though it looked like he was slacking off every day, Lucas knew exactly what was going on in every corner of the company. That sneaky bastard is so infuriating, Jason sighed. That rat is in someone else's soup now. Why are you getting worked up? Better to focus your energy on the tidal wave of traffic that's about to hit. If our reputation takes a dive then, you won't even have time to cry. Jason finally understood. Their company wasn't important enough for someone to plan a corporate spy. The mole would probably use the stolen data as a calling card to jump ship as soon as the other game launched. A smart company would never hire someone like that, but judging by their competitors' lack of vision, their leader probably wasn't that smart. But they all signed NDAs. Jason said, getting agitated again. Being a law student co-founder had its perks. Lucas was calm. Let go for now. We can't win a lawsuit against them right now. That was the reality. While the other company was also just a studio, they were backed by a corporation that could drop tens of millions without flinching. They had the upper hand in a legal battle. With that kind of backing, they could just claim it was a creative coincidence, and a small studio like theirs would be powerless. It's how the big guys with the expensive lawyers always won. They could either ignore it forever or wait until they were on a similar footing and settle old and new scores at once. There was no other way. It was more practical to focus on making money. What Jason didn't realize was that Lucas fully intended to bring this up again in the future. Not for revenge, but to generate buzz. By then, winning or losing the lawsuit wouldn't matter. The publicity would be invaluable. Bringing it up now would be like an ant trying to shake a tree. No one would care if a small studio got screwed over. But once they were bigger and more well-known, a move like that would be priceless. They started it, after all. He wouldn't feel bad about riding their coattails for some free press. Jason paused. Maybe we should split the profits 60-40, he said quietly. I don't feel like I deserve an even split with you. Don't be ridiculous. You're my dad's hardworking son. You do more than I do. Otherwise, how would your old man have so much time for romance? Jason shot him a friendly curse and left, closing the door behind him. What kind of relationship do those two have? Have they never even had a fight? At noon, Lucas was about to leave when he got a FaceTime call from Lily. He answered, slightly confused, and her bright, pretty face filled the screen. Her eyes blinked, a faint smile playing on her lips. She looked a little surprised and happy to see him, pressing her lips together before shyly hiding half her face in a pillow, leaving only her clear eyes visible. Lucas chuckled. What's up? He was a little surprised she had initiated a video call. This is the first time we've ever video called, she said in a small voice. You're right. Never even thought of it before. It's nice, she said. She liked it. She could see him properly, see his smile, his eyes, as if he were right there in front of her. This feature she'd barely used suddenly had new meaning. She had worked up her courage for a long time before calling, but now, she wasn't so nervous. He was her boyfriend, after all. I don't look ugly on camera, do I? She asked quietly. Not all. But the phone screen can't possibly capture how beautiful my girlfriend really is. You're talking nonsense again. She pouted, trying to suppress a smile. Are you coming back for lunch? What do you want to eat? Lucas glanced up. I'll just grab something myself. The semester hasn't started yet. Don't make the trip just for me. Suddenly, the Lily on the screen rolled over, and the background changed from her ceiling to her room in his apartment. But I'm already here, she said playfully. Oh, you're getting bold now, huh? Asking for forgiveness instead of permission. Lucas shot to his feet. Just you wait till I get back there. Oh no. This dork was really starting to learn his bad habits. To make the commute easier for both of them, but especially for Lily coming from campus, Lucas had deliberately rented a place very close to the university. It was just a few minutes' walk from a gate. With their anniversary approaching, small flower stalls had started popping up on the street corners. As he walked, he kept seeing them, filled with blossoms of every color. He slowed to a stop. He felt an overwhelming urge to slap himself. It was one thing for Lily to be a dork, but how had he become one too after spending so much time with her? From the day they met until now, he had never once given her flowers. He had planned on a night he confessed, but she had beaten him to the punch. How had he let it slip his mind since then? I'm such an idiot, he muttered. Even if she wasn't a huge fan of them, every other girl's boyfriend got them flowers, so she deserved them too. This was also part of his grand plan, to teach her to enjoy life. A master frog boiler had to drill the mission into his own head. With that in mind, he walked over and bought a huge bouquet. Lucas arrived back at the apartment. He had barely knocked twice when the door swung open. That was fast. Dinner's not even ready yet, Lily said softly. She had her hair up in a neat, long ponytail and was wearing a new apron. She looked incredibly cute. He had to admit, it really felt like they were building a life together. Not using his key was definitely the right choice. A smug smile played on Lucas's lips. He brought the flowers out from where he'd hidden them, stepped inside, and slowly closed the door. While she was still staring in stunned silence, he asked gently, Do you like them? Seeing her frozen there, her face a mask of shock and awe, Lucas finally felt a weight lift from his shoulders. So girls really did have a soft spot for romance. TSK should have thought of this sooner. He had been lulled by the peaceful happiness of their daily life, and had almost forgotten that Lily was still a girl who had never been in a relationship before. "Are you so moved you want to marry me on the spot?" he teased. To his surprise, she gave a tiny, almost imperceptible nod. "MHM," she whispered. "You're such a dork. You're too easy to fool. This is just the beginning. If I give you something else, are you going to let me trick you into having my kids?" Lucas said, ignoring the fact that he'd just been completely checkmated by her earnestness. He smiled and handed her the bouquet. "Wait a minute. My hands haven't even conquered the Twin Peaks. How am I already thinking about kids?" Lucas quickly shook his head, reinforcing his resolve to stick to the slow burn strategy. Advance slowly, but strike decisively when the time is right. He'd almost gotten cocky. Lily held the large bouquet, her voice soft. Thank you. Do we really need to say thank you to each other? Find another way to say it, or I'm going to start messing with you," he said, leaning in close, his expression stern. She bit her lip nervously, then leaned in and whispered into his ear, then, "Honey, thank you." The moment the words were out, she quickly lowered her head, her voice shrinking, but he could still see the blush creeping up her cheeks. "Do you like hearing that?" Lucas swallowed hard. "I do. Good." Having passed the test, Lily let out a silent sigh of relief. But just as she turned to leave, Lucas pulled her back. She could only pound weakly against his chest as his words and tongue intertwined with hers, leaving her breathless. She blinked in frustration before slowly closing her eyes. "You said you liked it, and this is how you repay me." A long while later, Lily smoothed out her slightly disheveled hair and looked at the bouquet lying by the wall. The more she looked, the more she loved it. "But you have to promise this is the only time you'll buy them." "Waste of money." Lucas knew that was what she would say. Lily knelt, gently tracing the petals with her finger, an irrepressible smile on her face. "Yeah. Then next time I'll fold you some out of paper." "You don't have to do that either." Lucas looked confused. "Why not?" She looked up at him and smiled softly. "It's a waste of your time. I'm getting the urge to kiss you again. What should I do?" Lily huffed. "Then I won't cook for you." Lucas grinned and ran his hand through her soft hair. He looked out the living room window at the blue sky and felt an incredible sense of contentment. Coming home to a nearly finished dinner and a beautiful wife waiting for him. What kind of fantasy life was this? Just as he was zoning out, Lily shot to her feet and rushed toward the kitchen. "What's wrong?" he asked. "It's about to burn." Watching her frantic retreat, Lucas felt a strange stirring in his heart. He bent down, picked up the flowers, and followed her inside. "If you're free this afternoon, you should come to the studio with me," Lucas said while they were eating. Seeing her curious look, he shrugged helplessly. "I have to cover for Jason. If I take care of enough of his work, he'll have nothing else to do and will have to go make up with his girlfriend." Lucas felt like the best dad in the world, the kind that could move anyone to tears. Why are they fighting? Lily found it strange. She couldn't even imagine getting angry with Lucas. Fighting? Wasn't that a waste of time they could be spending together? Lucas swallowed his food. "Fighting is normal. We'll probably have disagreements in the future, too. You couldn't find two identical leaves in the world, nor could you find two identical people. Disagreements were inevitable. As long as it didn't go too far, fighting didn't really hurt a relationship. The important thing was to resolve the issue. Letting problems pile up and bringing up old grievances again and again was the most destructive thing. Many people felt their relationships just fizzled out, that they just suddenly got tired, but it was often the result of one unresolved issue after another. By the end, there were so many you couldn't even remember them all, and it just felt like it died of natural causes. Thinking of this, Lucas said suddenly, "If I make you angry, you can argue with me, but please don't give me the silent treatment, okay?" Lily shook her head firmly. "I don't want to fight, but what if I make you angry? You won't make me angry, and I won't get angry at you," she said, her tone even more serious than his. "I'm saying, what if?" Lily thought for a moment. "Then I'll headbutt you, and then I'll hide somewhere you can't see me and cry." If even Lucas was hurting her, then she would have nowhere left to cry. Lucas didn't know whether to laugh or sigh. He reached out and squeezed her cheek. Such a dork. After lunch, Lucas started fiddling with the DSLR she had bought him. The more he looked at it, the more emotional he felt. This dork hadn't even blinked when buying him something so expensive. "Are you in a bad mood?" Lily asked softly, sitting down next to him. "No, you can't fool me about everything," Lily said, then guided his head to rest on her lap, gently stroking his face. Lucas sighed deeply. "It's just disgusting. Some people can be all smiles to your face, then stab you in the back without a second thought." "Your girlfriend wouldn't," she said gently, not quite understanding what had happened. "I will always like you." The really like you kind. Not just on the surface, but even more so in her heart. I know. Lucas suddenly sat up. Grab the flowers. Let me take a picture of you. I haven't even used this camera yet, and that photo album you gave me is still empty. Lily obediently picked up the bouquet and stood in the living room. Smile, Lily, Lucas said, unable to keep the grin off his face as he looked at her through the viewfinder. She had changed so much from when they first met. Back then, she couldn't even look at the camera. Oh, right, she couldn't even smile. At his words, a cute curve appeared on her lips. She slowly raised a hand and made a peace sign. You look so dorky like that, Lucas laughed. I do not. The picture captured her pouting. Looking at the photo, Lucas realized that the pose might be cheesy, but when a person was beautiful enough, none of that mattered. Lily slowly came over to his side. You see me every day. Why do you still need to take pictures of me so often? The person in the photo was her from just a few seconds ago, no different from how she was now. A picture like this has no meaning the moment it's taken. Its meaning is given by time. When we're old and gray, you'll understand. Lucas put the camera aside, his voice soft. When I've lost all my teeth and I'm a grumpy old man, you can look at the photos and remember how handsome your boyfriend was when he was young. I want you to look at photos, Lily said softly, placing a gentle kiss on his cheek. I remember every day of you. You have that good of a memory? Lucas joked. It's because my heart isn't cluttered with too many things, she said, holding up her fingers one by one. There's Mom, there's you, and there's Aaron. And that's it. She counted them carefully, ending up with just 3 fingers held up, looking a little lonely. Lucas tapped each of her fingers with his own, as if counting along with her. See why I told you to find a hobby? This dork still wasn't thinking about herself. She was like a satellite, orbiting the 3 suns in her heart. Not that he minded. A part of him selfishly wished her heart had room only for him. Love could make a person both great and selfish. That was Lucas right now. He wanted her to love only him for the rest of her life, for her mind to be filled with nothing but him. But if things continued this way, her life would be too one-dimensional. The more he liked her, the less he wanted her to live just for him, even if it was just binge-watching a TV show. That counts as a hobby, too, he said, refocusing the camera on a flower pot on the balcony. I get joy from it. For me, photography doesn't have some lofty, artistic meaning. It's just fun. I do it for kicks. And that was enough. A person has to love something like how plants love the sun. Otherwise, life is just too bland. That's where you are right now. Being with me doesn't count as a hobby. That's just a part of life. Because I can be there with you for anything you want to do. Lily's gaze drifted to the balcony. She blinked, a thoughtful, lost look in her eyes. Aaron's hobbies were a dime a dozen. She was always happy. Always had something she wanted to do. She played games, watched anime, read novels, and loved to cosplay. Emma had her things too. She seemed to know the plot of every show and book ever written. And Lucas's hobbies were even more numerous. He was constantly learning new things, though right now his favorite pastime seemed to be flirting with her. But her? She truly couldn't find one. The past 19 years of her life had been a frantic sprint from one mandatory goal to the next. Now, being asked to find something she wanted to do, she drew a blank. She had been pushed by pressure for so long that she now felt an inexplicable sense of loss. The only thing she had ever actively chosen to do in her entire life was confess her feelings to Lucas. Just as her thoughts began to spiral into confusion, she felt her hand being gently held. Take your time, Lucas said softly. A small smile touched his lips. You just relax in the warm water while I slowly cook you. Leave the rest to me. Lily took a deep breath, as if a weight had been lifted. Okay. The feeling of not belonging in this world began to fade. After their nap, a drowsy Lucas got up. When he walked into the living room, he saw Lily, who had woken up at some point, standing in front of the full-length mirror, occasionally adjusting her bangs. She was wearing the matching pajamas, her figure as delicate as ever. A shame he couldn't hold her while they slept. Yet, what are you doing? He asked, yawning as he grabbed the remote to turn on the AC. It was still August, the hottest part of the year, and this dork was too frugal to even turn on the air conditioning. Lily turned at the sound of his voice, her head shyly bowed. She took a couple of deep breaths before finally looking up at him. I secretly went to a salon at lunchtime and got my bangs cut off. Lucas stared, then slowly walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist. He looked at their reflection in the mirror. What made you suddenly decide to do that? I thought, I might look a little better. Bet you might like it. She whispered, You're thinking too small. I like you no matter what you look like, Lucas said lazily. Besides, weren't you nervous cutting them off? They were looking at each other's eyes in the mirror, a strange kind of eye contact. He didn't expect her tone and gaze to suddenly become so serious. "I want to say goodbye to my past self," she said firmly. "We made a promise when you played the guitar for me, that one day I would learn to hold my head high. I don't have to be afraid of being bullied anymore. After all, my boyfriend will protect me, and I want to become stronger, too." Lucas was stunned for a moment, then realized this dork did have a mind of her own. He grinned and hugged her tighter. "Good. I support you." Lily turned her head and placed a soft kiss on his neck. "Is a guitar here? I want to hear you play." "It's been a long time since I practiced," he said with a laugh. "It's okay." She held the hands that were wrapped around her waist. "I only like hearing you play. I'll go get it." He turned and headed to his bedroom. He'd brought it over to protect it from Emma, not expecting he'd actually have a chance to use it here. A few minutes later, Lucas sat on the sofa, looking at the girl in front of him, and felt a little dazed. He'd always known his girlfriend was beautiful, but now, seeing her at her most beautiful all the time, it honestly made his heart race. It was like the occasional moments when he'd pushed her bangs aside were a special bonus level in a game, and now someone was telling him that the bonus level was permanent. It was an incredible feeling. "Will it be too loud for the neighbors?" Lily asked softly. Lucas, holding the guitar, adjusted a string. "It'll be fine. I'll play quietly. What do you want to hear?" She thought for a moment. "The songs you played for me before." She hadn't heard that many songs in her life. "You got it." Lucas took a deep breath, now fully awake. He strummed a few chords to get the feel, then began to play in earnest. Lily quietly scooted closer to him, something she wouldn't have dared to do back then. Soon, she was completely lost in the music. It was just like when they first met on the campus quad, with him playing seriously and her listening intently. It was as if nothing had changed. Except now this boy was her boyfriend. "Rusty. I'm so rusty," Lucas said, dissatisfied, after finishing a few songs. It had been too long since he'd touched the instrument. The calluses he'd developed from practicing were long gone. The main problem was that this dork liked listening but never showed it, so he'd gotten careless. "I loved it," she said, her voice a little brighter. She stood on her tiptoes and gave him a quick kiss. Lucas cleared his throat loudly, his face a perfect deadpan. "I'm a musician, not a gigolo. If you want to kiss me, you'll have to pay extra." "That's not what you say when you kiss me," she said, looking wounded. Lucas laughed and ruffled her hair. "Are you a dork or what?" It was a joke. The words were barely out of his mouth when he was met with a headbutt. Lily immediately rushed forward, rubbing his stomach regretfully. "Do you think Erin will be shocked this afternoon? She'll definitely say, 'Lily, are you crazy? What were you thinking?'" Lucas mimicked in a high-pitched, dramatic voice. "And then, a second later, she'll say, 'But seriously, how are you so pretty?'" He was certain Erin's reaction would be a mix of shock and delight. He couldn't be wrong. Lily nodded, staring at her reflection in the mirror as if seeing a stranger. Even though she knew this was what she looked like, it felt like the first time. She straightened her posture and managed a decent smile. It was a little stiff, but a vast improvement from before, when her forced smile had actually scared Lucas. Her gaze gradually became more determined, a hint of confidence and brightness she'd never had before shining in her eyes. Let the past be the past, she told herself. She had to make Lucas's efforts worth it. "Hello, Lily Thompson," she said to herself in her head. That afternoon at the studio, the moment they walked in, a quiet buzz went through the office. "Whoa, turns out our boss is a player. The second he makes some money, he gets a new girlfriend." "What are you talking about? That's still the boss's girl, isn't it? Let me put on my glasses." "Dude, did you fix that bug yet?" "That's Lily, right?" "It has to be. I had no idea she was that beautiful." "I don't know. She and Lucas look even more like a power couple now. I'm shipping them so hard I might just die." The programmers and the artists had slightly different reactions. "Gossip about the boss gets your pay docked," Lucas said quietly, then disappeared into his office. He had work to do. Erin Thompson had been frozen in shock from the moment she saw Lily. She was clearly the most stunned of anyone. "Chloe, I'm not dreaming, am I?" Erin said in a daze. "I don't think so, unless we're having a shared dream right now." The short-haired girl next to her, Chloe, twirled a pen, her eyes still fixed on Lily, who was hesitating about where to go. "The boss's girlfriend has really pretty eyes." From this distance, Chloe couldn't actually see her eyes, but with Lily's new hairstyle, her whole aura had leveled up. Before, she had been a little too gloomy. After a few seconds, Chloe leaned back in her chair. "Ugh, I want to go to a movie premiere later. But I'm too scared to ask for time off. The story of my life." She let out a dramatic sigh. Erin shot her a disdainful look. "Isn't asking for time off as simple as just saying something? If you're really too scared, just ask her," she said, pointing to Lily, who was now getting water from the cooler. The previously lethargic Chloe suddenly perked up. "Ask the boss's girlfriend? Will that work?" Erin scoffed. Of course it'll work. She has the user manual for Lucas Carter. Then she added with a sly grin, if you get any free swag, you have to give me some. My advice isn't free. Deal. Just then, Lily carefully placed a paper cup of water on Chloe's desk, then sat down on the other side of Erin. Chloe blinked. Lily seemed to have refilled the water for several people. She'd been so busy talking, she hadn't even noticed her own cup was taken away. The boss's girlfriend got water for me. She looked at the full cup, swallowed hard, and felt her heart melt. She suddenly understood how ancient retainers could be so devoted to their lords. If Lily timidly asked her to work overtime, she'd work herself to death, no questions asked. Mom, I've made it. I have a job where the boss's girlfriend brings me water. Erin ignored the starstruck Chloe and turned to interrogate Lily. Lily, are you crazy? What were you thinking? She shrieked. This was the girl who used to be too shy to even push her bangs aside. How did she just cut them all off? What on earth had happened? Honestly, Erin was having a hard time adjusting to this new look. Lily had had those long bangs for as long as she'd known her. I wasn't really thinking anything. Lily said honestly. It just felt like it was time, so I did it. Erin blinked, then scooted over to cuddle with her. How are you so pretty? Lily's mouth fell open slightly, her eyebrows twitching. How did Lucas guess her reaction word for word? Am I a little prettier? I thought Lucas might like it, she said, lowering her head, a hint of pride in her voice. Erin, who had been cuddling her a second ago, suddenly sat back in her own chair and huffed. I don't love you anymore. These two were force-feeding her PDA every day. Neither of them was a good person. Was her best friend's brain now filled with nothing but her boyfriend? Don't be like that, Lily pleaded, timidly taking Erin's hand. Erin wasn't having it. She decided to keep teasing her. If Lucas and I were both drowning, and you could only save one of us, who would you save? You. Lily answered instantly, without a shred of hesitation. Erin was thrilled. She bit her lip, her eyes shimmering. Lily, you're the best. I knew you still loved me. A mere man could never come between best friends. Lily tilted her head, confused, looking at the emotional Erin, unsure of what to say. Lucas knows how to swim. He doesn't need saving. Wait, I don't think I can swim either. As she thought about it, the question started to seem rather meaningless. Her gaze fell on Erin's computer screen, at the uncolored cartoon character. The more she looked, the cuter she found it. Noticing her interest, Erin explained, this is an early concept, not finalized yet. I usually draw a bunch of different versions to get inspired, then pick the one I like best. She sighed. I just feel like this pose isn't dynamic enough. She's supposed to be a quirky character, but I can't seem to capture it. What's that? Lily asked, pointing to the black slate next to Erin's keyboard. You've seen it before. It's a digital tablet. The one in my dorm is smaller. This one is more professional. They're the same thing. Erin suddenly got an idea. Since she was slacking off anyway, she pulled Lily over. This thing is amazing. Here, let me show you. A long time later, Lily looked at the character Erin had drawn and, with clumsy hands, drew a slightly uglier version of it. It was just a rough sketch, so Erin hadn't been trying too hard, but the fact that Lily could copy it so closely meant she had a good eye for drawing. Erin stared at the character Lily had drawn, completely stunned. She had lost count of how many times she'd been shocked today. If she had the inspiration, she might have thought of that pose. That was the whole point of concept art. How to convey the most information in a single, static image. It was a deep and complex skill. Erin didn't even notice that her stylus had fallen to the floor. Lily, she murmured, you going into accounting was a huge waste of talent. What should I have studied then? Lily asked, curious. She had always thought it was a decent major. Graduate, get a stable job at a big corporation. At least she wouldn't have to worry about food or shelter or being a scapegoat. But that was her original plan. Now, she felt like her life had drifted onto a completely different track, one with no return. Erin bent down, picked up her stylus, and tapped the monitor. You'd never join my drama club, that's for sure, but you could learn to draw with me. You've got your whole life ahead of you. Are you really going to spend it all studying? She knew Lily would have more free time once the semester started, but she had never considered asking her to join the club. It was impossible. Even if that dork had nothing to do all day, she would never get up on a stage. Lily looked at the little character she had drawn, not ugly, but not exactly good either, and lowered her head in embarrassment. Don't be silly. I can't draw. My hands are clumsy, and I'd be a slow learner. She didn't say she didn't like it. Realizing this, Erin grit her teeth and pulled up her own artistic dark history from a private online album. She had thought about deleting it countless times, but had always settled for just making it private. It was still a part of her journey, even if it was too embarrassing to show anyone. But for Lily, it was a sacrifice worth making. She held her phone up to Lily. Have some confidence. Look, when I first started learning seriously, my drawings were way worse than yours. Lily stared at the misshapen figure on the screen, unable to figure out what it was supposed to be. It's Saber, Aaron explained with a sigh, sensing her confusion. Lily froze. Aaron had drawn Saber recently, and the difference between that and this was indescribable. Just as Lily was trying to think of something to say, she heard Chloe spit out a mouthful of water, followed by a fit of coughing. Aaron's face darkened, a vein throbbing in the hand holding her phone. Aaron, I didn't see anything, I swear. Chloe, who had snuck over to eavesdrop, quickly tried to distance herself. Aaron looked at Lily with a stony expression. This person wants to take the afternoon off for a movie premiere. Go tell your man and get her the time off. She enunciated every word deliberately. Lily nodded meekly, stood up, and started walking toward Lucas's office. She'd only taken a few steps when she heard Aaron's indignant voice behind her. Hey, I called him your man, and you didn't even argue? Oh. Realizing her mistake, Lily quickly turned her head and chided, Don't say things like that. Chloe was terrified. She quickly wiped her mouth and ran over to Lily. I'm not going. You don't have to tell him. I'll stay and help Aquarium teach you how to draw. For her, missing a premiere meant being sad for a few days. But not placating Aaron meant facing her wrath for a very long time. That girl held a grudge like no other. Chloe had learned that the hard way. That evening, Lucas and Lily walked back to the apartment, each carrying a bag of groceries. The sun hung low in the sky, stretching their shadows long before them. The oppressive heat of the day had finally begun to fade, and the quiet path, with only the chirping of cicadas for company, felt peaceful and leisurely. Lily was determined to save Lucas from a life of takeout. Whenever she wasn't with Sophia for her physical therapy, she took charge of all his meals. Buying so many groceries at once was more convenient, saving her a trip to the store every time she came over. As Lucas waved his hands around, playing with the shadow, Lily said quietly, I want to buy a digital tablet. She had secretly looked it up that afternoon. It was about $300. If she really bought it, it would be the most expensive thing she had ever bought for herself. Lucas paused for a moment, then nodded enthusiastically. Lily Thompson, you're finally getting it. Your teacher is very pleased. It hadn't been long since he'd told her how important it was to have a hobby, and she was already looking for one. This was a dork with potential. Excellent. But what made you think of drawing? Lily leaned closer to him, letting their shadows merge into one. Because when I'm drawing, it feels so quiet, she said softly. It's like my whole world is following the tip of the pen. She couldn't quite describe the feeling. That afternoon, whenever she took a break, time had seemed to fly by. She had felt so calm. And when she finished a character, the thought that she had created it made her even happier. She finished speaking and peeked at Lucas at the gentle smile on his face. He was such a strange person. The men back in her hometown all wanted their wives to do nothing but cook, clean, and raise children, never leaving the house. But Lucas was always pushing her to find other interests, to let something else take up a little bit of the space he occupied in her heart. Aren't you afraid that one day I'll become super independent and suddenly want to leave you? She couldn't help but ask. Terrified, Lucas said seriously. Then why? Before you were my girlfriend, you were Lily Thompson. Hearing this, Lily smiled and leaned her whole body against him. I'm your girlfriend, Lily Thompson. Lucas supported her, playing along with her playfulness. We both need to grow in the same direction. Imagine if you were well-read and eloquent, and all I knew how to do was grin like an idiot. Will we have anything to talk about? You tell me you just finished reading a classic novel, and I'd say watching crickets fight is more fun. Lucas's words made her smile. Though she didn't fully grasp his way of thinking yet, she knew his love for her ran much deeper than she had imagined. He was truly thinking about how they could be together forever. She had to become someone who could keep up with him, not someone whose world revolved only around him. When he said the moonlight was beautiful, she wanted to be able to say the wind was gentle, too. On an impulse, she raised her hand and made half a heart with her shadow. Before she could say anything, the half heart on the ground became whole. Their movements were perfectly in sync. The smile on her face grew brighter. She suddenly understood completely. She linked her arm through his and asked gently, What do you want for dinner? You. That's for dessert. Then let's have sweet and sour pork ribs. On the morning of their anniversary, they had plans to go to the aquarium. Lucas had noticed how fascinated Lily was with all kinds of fish during their team dinner after the competition. Since the water heater at her place was on the fritz, Lily had come over a little early to wash her hair. Lucas was carefully drying her hair, smiling to himself as he glanced at the TikTok videos on his phone. He'd never been one to scroll through short-form videos, but now he couldn't help it, since every few swipes brought up a clip of their game. The speed at which things blew up on the internet was dizzying. You could fall asleep scrolling one night and wake up to an entirely new viral sound taking over. One day, everyone was obsessed with one meme, and the next, it was something else entirely. It was nothing new. The snowball had started rolling back at the Comic-Con, when a couple of big YouTubers posted their gameplay vlogs. From a moment influencers realized they could get views by riding their game's coattails, it was like they were a high jumper who'd already planted their pole, just waiting for that final leap. Word of mouth did the rest. By their anniversary, you couldn't scroll through your Facebook timeline or TikTok feed without seeing something about their game. There were tutorial videos, meme edits, and even lore deep dives where people pieced together the story from snippets of item descriptions. They had completely captured the youth market. The explosive popularity was a testament to Lucas's competition-winning idea and its solid execution. But even though he'd anticipated success, he'd never imagined it would be this massive. The virality went into overdrive after they launched the feature that ranked friends by their completion times on Facebook. Lucas didn't hesitate. He started offering triple pay and called everyone who was working remotely back to the office. He'd started looking to hire more staff the moment the game showed signs of taking off, but even he couldn't keep up with the meteoric rise. Still, things were more or less going according to plan. They'd ride this wave of traffic for as long as they could. You could make a fortune off a hit Facebook instant game, but you couldn't expect it to last for years. His focus was on the next step. Once the hype died down, and right when their second game was ready to launch, he would hit the company that stole their data with a lawsuit. He'd go after their parent corporation, too. He and William Montgomery had barely spoken a handful of words over the years. Lucas couldn't care less about saving the man's face. Besides, he had all the leverage. The lawsuit would create a second wave of publicity, perfectly timed for their next release. The quality of the second game wouldn't even have to be spectacular. Then, with the capital from both games, they could apply for a multi-million-dollar publishing deal on their own terms. It was a perfect plan. Her hair's gotten a little longer, Lucas thought to himself. Ever since he'd casually mentioned he liked it long and straight, Lily had only worn it down, unless she was working. He gently lifted sections of her hair, letting the warm air from the dryer pass through evenly. "You don't have to be so careful," Lily said softly. He was more meticulous about it than she was. "This is my girlfriend's hair. Of course, I have to be careful." Lucas ran his fingers through it a couple of times, feeling that it was mostly dry. He leaned in to take a sniff. The hot air had washed out most of its usual scent. He wondered if it was the cheap hairdryer. The air it blew always had a weird plastic smell. He made a mental note to buy a new one. Just as he was about to speak, his phone rang. Seeing Jason's name on the screen, he answered and held the phone slightly away from his ear. "Dude, our game is blowing up." I know. I'm watching the numbers," Lucas said, exasperated. Jason let out a triumphant laugh. "You're not coming into the office today?" "Nope. Me being there isn't going to make us any more money." Lucas put the hairdryer back in the drawer. "Remember what I said? Stick to the plan. If you get cocky, they'll get cocky, and that's when mistakes happen." "Got it. Aren't you supposed to be with Vanessa? You're not doing any good sitting at the office. The team is on triple pay with bonuses. They don't need you there cracking the whip. Go do what you're supposed to do. I'll stick around for a bit. Otherwise, I'll just be worrying about every little thing." "You're hopeless," Lucas muttered, hanging up with a smile. "Is it busy at the company?" Lily asked, looking up at him from the couch. "Not at all." Lucas picked up her purse. "Let's go. We have anniversary plans, remember?" He felt zero pressure. He'd always believed that the waiting period was the worst time to be nervous. The work was done. There was nothing more he could do. Stressing now was just self-torture. You either put in the work beforehand or you let go completely. Being stuck in the middle was just agony. Lily blinked, realizing it was pointless to argue. She got up and followed him. On the road, Lucas glanced at the analytics on his phone before setting aside. The numbers were insane. They were absolutely raking it in. "We should buy a house," he said suddenly, his tone casual. "What?" Lily jumped, freezing in her seat. "Why are you so shocked?" He hadn't told her the full story. His plan was to buy 2 places. One, in both their names for Sophia to live in. The other would be a gift for his own parents. It was a clean way to handle it, so Robert and Emily wouldn't feel awkward. It would also make it more likely that Sophia would agree to move. Her current landlord was a jerk anyway, and the lease was almost up. It was the perfect time for a change. Being cooped up in that tiny apartment couldn't be good for her mood. As for himself, he was fine with his rental. All he needed was a place to live. The only downside was not being able to sleep in the same room as this dork. Thinking about it all, Lucas's mood brightened. He felt like a college kid who'd just gotten his first real paycheck, overcome with the surprising urge to give it all to his parents, partly to repay them, and partly to prove he was finally a grown-up. When she realized Lucas wasn't joking, Lily was even more flustered. "Why are you suddenly talking about this?" "Well, my company didn't go bankrupt, so it's making money. If we got lucky, buying a house isn't that crazy, is it?" Lucas said gently. "Has it ever occurred to you that your boyfriend might actually be pretty capable?" "I've always known that," Lily said earnestly. "I just never thought you'd make this much money. I mean, a lot of part-time jobs don't even pay $600 a month." Lucas decided the moment wasn't quite right and continued to spiel. "We're going to get married someday, right? And we'll need a house, won't we?" Lily looked at him, completely baffled. "I'd marry you even if we didn't have a house. And also, Lucas's mouth opened and closed, but no more words came out. What was I going to say? His brain had completely shut down, filled with the echo of her words. "I'd marry you even if we didn't have a house." All the carefully prepared arguments and persuasive tricks vanished from his mind. He knew the feeling well. It was like playing League of Legends, planning out a flashy, perfect combo to finish off an opponent, only to get silenced by a single ability and taken out by a simple ultimate. All that power, with nowhere to use it. "Why did you stop talking?" Lily's worried question sounded to Lucas like a victor's taunt. He gave a wry smile, cleared his throat, and said seriously, "Your lease is almost up. When we get the house, your mom can move in first. Your mom's in her 40s now. Life is short." He didn't say more. Anything else would have sounded harsh. After a moment of silence in the car, the girl gave a soft and... The car pulled into a spot near the aquarium. As Lucas was helping Lily with her seatbelt, he heard her ask quietly, "Were you sent from heaven to save me?" He paused and smiled. "You were." A faint smile graced Lily's lips. Her eyes, reflecting Lucas's face, seemed to hold the gentle shimmer of autumn water. Her gaze alone was enough to define the word tender. She suddenly realized that smiling had become an effortless act for her. The happiness that had once seemed as distant as the sun in the sky, a goal she chased relentlessly but could never reach, was now, finally, within her grasp. "See? You used to never let me unbuckle your seatbelt, and now look at you," Lucas said with a roguish grin. "I suggest you just give up struggling altogether. You know I always win in the end." "You're being shameless again," Lily chided softly. He was always either physically teasing her or getting a verbal one-up, just like her mom said, slyly mischievous. At least he was only like this with her. Was it wrong that she found it kind of nice? Lucas looked at her with an innocent expression. "I was saying I want to buy you another dress, and that you shouldn't say no. What were you thinking about?" The words pure and innocent were practically written on his face. "You've been wearing this dress I got you for ages, and you still won't let me buy you another one. So stubborn." As he spoke, he reached out and fiddled with the collar of her dress, getting a perfect view of her elegant collarbones. "Ah!" The next second, he was yelping and shaking his hand after the blushing, annoyed girl gave him a light nip. Lily huffed. She had a temper too, but even as she thought it, she'd only managed a gentle bite. If Lucas hadn't played along, it would have had no effect at all. Just as Lucas was about to get out of the car, he felt Lily gently tug on his arm. "What's wrong?" he asked, curious. The girl seemed too shy to look at him. She turned her face away and mumbled, her voice as quiet as a mosquito's buzz, "Kiss me." Lucas froze. The effect of that one moment, on him and likely on any guy, was probably indescribable. "Humph. Shameless girl," he grumbled internally. "Always getting freebies from me, but never letting me do anything else." His body, however, betrayed his thoughts and leaned in for the kiss. A few minutes later, Lily was arm in arm with Lucas as they walked into the aquarium. "What are you supposed to do on an anniversary?" she whispered, leaning closer to him. "There are no rules for what you're supposed to do," Lucas said, squeezing her hand. "For me, it's just another excuse to get you all to myself. All that matters is that you have fun." For many, it was the perfect day for a date or a grand romantic gesture. For a select few, it was a good opportunity to bring a new target back to their place. And then there were people who just stayed in their dorms playing video games, completely oblivious to the date. It was just a day, different in everyone's eyes. So, the Dort's question had no standard answer. Lily always seemed to be trying to give him the perfect relationship, constantly thinking about how to be a good, or even excellent, girlfriend. That's why, despite having no dating experience, she was always asking what she was supposed to do. Her way of thinking was often quite adorable. This was what it was like to have a girlfriend with a uniquely wired brain. You had to decipher her thought process from time to time, and once you did, you couldn't help but smile to yourself. She was dorky and cute, And sometimes, if you weren't careful, her logic would pull you in, too. You're such a goofball. Who asked a question like that? Lucas couldn't help but tease her. Lily pouted. What's so goofy about it? For years, the day had meant nothing to her, other than the fact that it was especially likely to rain. When she was little, she thought it was romantic that Romeo and Juliet would cry in each other's arms when they met. It was only after she got older and started school that she learned it was just a weather pattern. So many illusions were shattered in an instant. But now, their anniversary gave her another reason to be close to Lucas, and it made her love the day all over again. She was usually so worried about him being busy that she'd never ask him to go out. Today, she could be a little selfish. Just as she was thinking this, a girl holding a bouquet of flowers approached them with a smile. Hey, buy a flower for your beautiful girlfriend? Lucas, pleased by the compliment, asked directly how much. 15 for one, or 99 for the whole bouquet. Lucas jutted his chin toward Lily. I'm broke. My wife holds all the money. Lily froze on the spot. The little girl turned to her, blinking her big eyes. Ma'am, guys need romance too. How about buying one for your husband? $10. Take it or leave it. Lily, as if possessed, found herself wanting to buy one, but her frugal instincts kicked in and she started haggling. For a sister as pretty as you, $10 it is. Just as Lily was about to pull out her phone to pay, Lucas beat her to it. Walking away, Lily looked at the single red rose in her hand, completely exasperated with herself. The moment she saw the girl approaching, she had been determined not to buy anything. How did a simple man make her cave? $10 for a single flower. That's robbery, she scolded gently. $10 could buy so many groceries. Lucas, on the other hand, looked smug. $10 to get a wife? I'd say I made a killing. Lily was speechless. Sometimes Lucas was brilliant, and other times he was just plain silly. But it was bought, so she carefully placed the flower in her bag, making sure it was secure. She would be devastated if she lost it. The price didn't matter. Every single thing Lucas gave her was a treasure, and this flower counted as a gift from him. Watching her, Lucas found her more and more adorable. It's okay to spend a little. The romance and the memory of this moment are things $10 can't buy. Is this also part of the plan? Lily asked, tilting her head. Yep. The Lord is very particular. Where do you learn all these lines? Novels. I'll show you some time. The aquarium wasn't exactly a top-tier date spot, so even on their anniversary, it wasn't overly crowded. It was busy, but not shoulder to shoulder. The lighting inside was dim, and just past the entrance were tanks filled with various kinds of fish. Being near the entrance, none of them were particularly rare, blood parrot cichlids, and other species you could buy at a pet store. Just as Lucas had expected, Lily was fascinated. No, not just fascinated, she was completely captivated. The moment they stepped inside, she was like a little kid, pulling him from one tank to the next, pressing her face close to the glass as if afraid she'd miss a single detail. Lucas was beginning to think her past life was a total enigma. He'd once thought she might have been an ostrich or a mule, but now he had to consider the possibility that she'd lived in the ocean. It was a mystery he might have to spend a lifetime solving. Look up. After walking for a while, Lily suddenly shook his arm and whispered. Lucas looked up and saw that the ceiling had been replaced by a transparent glass tunnel. Fish of all sizes were swimming right over their heads. It was a pretty cool design. That one's smiling at us. That's a stingray. Its face is actually... Lucas started to explain, but then he saw the focused, adorable look on Lily's face. A smile crept onto his own lips. You're right, he said softly. It is smiling. Girls are creatures who have a peculiar habit of needing the restroom in the middle of a date. Lucas, waiting with a bit of boredom, took out his DSLR camera and aimed the lens at a distant whale shark, trying to get a feel for the lighting. Wow, you look like a pro. Do you do photo shoots? A voice asked from beside him. I only take pictures of my girlfriend. Sorry, he replied coolly, his eyes still fixed on the whale shark in his viewfinder. Sensing the presence beside him move away, Lucas looked down at his camera with a perfect mask of horror and disbelief. No wonder so many players love using this trick. It seemed the guy really did have to protect himself when he was out, especially if he was holding a nice camera. Lucas scanned the area and spotted a chubby kid sitting on a bench, engrossed in his phone. With nothing better to do, he walked over and sat down next to him. As soon as he sat, a familiar background music hit his ears. Why does that sound so familiar? He glanced over and, sure enough, it was their game. Why come to the aquarium just to sit on a bench and play on your phone? Lucas joked. The kid let out a deep sigh, his tone heavy. When you get to my age, you'll understand. Is that game any good? Lucas pressed. It's awesome. The kid's interest was piqued. He angled his phone toward Lucas. If I get an item that reduces card costs this run, it'll be God tier. You know, if you get the right combo of cards and relics with this character, you can play infinitely in a single turn. Of course I know. I made the game, Lucas said nonchalantly. He then stood up, walked over to Lily, and took her hand, leaving the kid sitting there like a statue. Whether the kid believed him or not didn't matter to Lucas. The flex was what counted. Why were you talking to a little kid? Lily found him amusing. Kids these days are so mature. He told me I'd understand when I got to his age. Lily let out a soft laugh. That's actually pretty cute. Lucas snorted. If our future kid ever says that to me, I'm breaking his legs. You can't hit our kids, the girl said seriously, even though she knew he was joking. The moment the words left her mouth, Lucas leaned in close to her ear. So, you're agreeing to have him with me? Shameless. Don't praise me so much, you'll make me blush. You. Lily was at a loss for words. She decided to drop the subject, linking her arm with his to continue their walk. What else could she do? She couldn't stay mad at him, so her only option was to move on before he could tease her further. The dork seemed to have boundless energy. Lucas decided they would grab a quick lunch and keep exploring the afternoon. Later that day, Lily pressed her palm against the glass of a jellyfish tank, watching the creatures pulse through the water. They swim so hard, she said in a low voice, but it feels like the smallest wave could just sweep them away. Just like me. So powerless even in a tank, and even more insignificant in the vast ocean. They were probably at the mercy of the currents, forced to go wherever the waves took them. Just like life. Seeing the somber look on her face, Lucas moved to her side. Life finds a way. He suddenly remembered something and tapped a finger on the glass. Besides, there's a species called the immortal jellyfish. When it reaches a certain stage of development, it can revert back to its embryonic state and grow all over again. It's a form of asexual reproduction. Lily looked at him, amazed. How do you know everything? Throughout their walk, whenever she had a question, Lucas always had an answer. Lucas shrugged. Just happened to see a video about it. Yeah, right? I stayed up half the night watching nature documentaries because I was afraid you'd ask something I didn't know. All because my girlfriend likes fish. He turned his gaze to the jellyfish, watching them drift aimlessly. It occurred to him that everyone saw something different in them. To Lily, they were helpless and weak. To him, they were like his old self. He remembered Emma once saying it would be cool to be a jellyfish, just floating around, going wherever life took you. It's a stretch, but that's a kind of immortality in its own way, he chuckled. Pretty sweet, right? Who hasn't wished for eternal life? It was a desire as old as time. Life was just too short. So short that the thought of one day being separated from this dork sent a pang through his heart, a suffocating tightness in his chest. When he was a kid, a lifetime felt long, and even a single summer vacation seemed to stretch on forever. Now, time seemed to fly by faster and faster. He'd think about something he did yesterday, only to realize it had happened several days ago. As Lucas was lost in thought, the girl asked another question. But do they still have their memories when they grow again? I don't think so. I don't think jellyfish really have memories to begin with. Lily gave a barely perceptible nod. Then what's so good about being immortal? She said, completely unfazed. I never want to forget you. As long as I'm with you, I'd be happy even if I only live for a day, like a mayfly. A life that begins with a morning waking up to you, a sunset witnessed by your side, and ends with you there as night falls. One day would be enough. In fact, she felt like she had only truly started living after she met Lucas. Thinking about her past still made it hard to breathe. The last dozen or so years of her life combined didn't hold as much happiness as this single day. She figured it was their different childhoods that made them see things so differently. Don't you think one day is too short? Lucas asked. Lily shook her head firmly. Without you, she said, her voice earnest, even one day is too long. Lucas turned to her, stunned. She was still looking at the jellyfish, standing perfectly still. He felt like he had just heard the most beautiful words of his entire life. And they hadn't come from some post he'd scrolled past online, but from the mouth of this dork. Spoken to him. Well, that's one of the few things we disagree on, Lucas said, smiling as he took her hand. But this time you've convinced me. He couldn't imagine a life without Lily by his side anymore. Not even for a day. As they neared the exit, Lucas stopped and checked the time. Want to go see a movie? He asked softly. Lily tilted her head. We can watch movies at home. I can lie in your arms, and it doesn't cost anything. So practical, Lucas teased. Did you have a good time? Happy enough to be content with just this one day. Still on that kick? Lucas couldn't help but laugh. There will be plenty more days like this. Lily stepped forward and took his hand again. I have a gift for you two. A gift? Lucas was surprised. He didn't think you were supposed to exchange gifts on an anniversary. Oh crap. I messed up. He really hadn't prepared anything. Let's go back first. You'll see when we get there, Lily said with a small smile. She led the way, her steps light as she happily swung his arm. The long hem of her skirt swayed with her movements. It was already past 5 in the afternoon, but the sky was still bright, one of the perks of summer. If it had already been dusk when they left, he would have felt a little down, that sense of a perfect day coming to an end. Lucas suddenly grinned mischievously. Don't tell me you're going to wash up and gift wrap yourself for me. Of course not. The aquarium wasn't far from their apartment, and with Lucas eager to get back, they arrived quickly. As Lucas was changing his shoes in the entryway, Lily had already dashed into her room and locked the door behind her. Well, that's weird, Lucas muttered, looking at the closed door. Half an hour later, Lucas had just secured a 3-star champion in teamfight tactics when his last 2 opponents immediately surrendered, robbing him of the satisfaction. He grimly set his phone down on the coffee table, feeling that winning like this was somehow worse than losing. Lily, are you done yet? He called out, slumping onto the sofa. Almost. The girl's soft voice came from the room. Lucas's gaze returned to his phone, his mind wandering. He had to admit, the high of rolling for champions was addictive, and the random buffs made every game feel different. Novelty really was the most important thing for keeping players engaged. He'd developed this occupational hazard since he started making games, always subconsciously analyzing whatever he was playing. Inside the room, Lily sat on the edge of her bed, staring at the 2 pairs of long stockings, one black, one white, that she'd hidden in her backpack. She couldn't even summon the courage to open the packaging. Just looking at them made her cheeks burn. Why do guys like this kind of thing? Maybe I'll wear them for him some other time. It felt far too dangerous to wear them now. She carefully tucked the packages deep in her bag and then flopped onto the bed like a deflated balloon. Lily, what were you thinking? You agreed in the heat of the moment, and now look at you, suffering for it. Serves you right. The more she thought about it, the more frustrated she became. She kicked her feet against the mattress a couple of times before burying her burning face in her duvet, hiding like an ostrich. Right now, only one thought filled her mind. Being a person of your word is truly painful. Just as Lucas was quietly lost in thought, the door slowly creaked open. He looked up curiously, only to see it open just a crack. He tilted his head. What kind of weird game are you playing now? Close your eyes first, the girl said timidly. Lucas found it strange, but he did as she said, obediently shutting his eyes. If you open them, I'll headbutt you. Don't worry, Lucas replied with a helpless smile. This dork was always making him close his eyes. It used to make him feel vulnerable, but now he found it a little thrilling. As soon as he agreed, the apartment fell silent. The talking stopped, and there wasn't even the sound of footsteps. After another moment, the girl seemed to have finally gathered her courage and began walking toward him, one step at a time. Each footfall landed on his heartstrings, making his pulse quicken. What on earth is she up to now? He had just furrowed his brow when he felt the girl take his arm and sit on his lap, near his knees, still keeping a careful distance. Can I open my eyes now? Lucas asked. Lily responded with a hum as faint as a mosquito's buzz. He opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was the girl, who had already turned her face away in shyness. Then he noticed the period-style gown she was wearing. It was a flowing, pale green silk gown with a crimson sash, looking like something straight out of a fantasy epic. Her fair neck and collarbones were elegantly exposed, and the whole outfit made her figure look even more slender. She had even put her hair up with an intricate pin. He had no idea how long it had taken her to learn to do that. Lucas was so stunned he couldn't speak. He'd seen countless costumes like this in period dramas, but he'd never seen one look so breathtaking. Lily, feeling awkward, rested her chin on his shoulder and leaned her entire body against his, hugging him tightly in her nervousness. Lucas swallowed hard. He wrapped his arms around her slender waist, feeling the smooth, slippery texture of the silk sleeves. Are you Juliet? He asked softly. I'm your girlfriend. Lily then whispered. Do you want to only see me once a year? Did you buy this? Yeah. Aaron helped me pick it out. Lucas paused. So you used your own salary to buy this gown, just for me to see? Lily might or might not like wearing it herself, but she would never have bought something like this on her own. It could only have been for him. For her, buying this kind of outfit was a huge extravagance, since she would never wear it out. That meant he was the only one who would ever see it. In other words, this dork really had bought it just for him. TCH. Suddenly, he had the absurd urge to break off one of his own ribs and make bone broth for her. Do you like it? The girl asked, her voice muffled as she buried her face in his neck. Lucas could feel the heat radiating from her cheeks. I love it. But what made you think of this? Lily nibbled lightly on his neck. I thought you liked it. When we first met, You were always trying to trick me into wearing one. I was going to ask Aaron to borrow one from the drama club, Lucas admitted, feeling a pang of guilt. They were a couple now, but it felt strange that she had spent her own hard-earned money just for his sake. The girl brought her lips to his ear and murmured, "Mainly because I knew if you saw me in it, you wouldn't be able to resist messing with me, and it wouldn't be right to do that with a borrowed costume." Lucas felt his heart stop for 2 beats, then start hammering against his ribs as if it had been storing up energy. It was impossible to stay composed after hearing that. He slowly reached up and gently pulled the pin from her hair. Her silky, dark hair cascaded down her back like a waterfall. "I didn't get you a gift, so how about I just wrap myself up and give myself to you?" Lucas said, still in a daze. "Really? You sounding so happy about that makes me feel really guilty." Lily, looking slightly confused, released her arms and smoothed her waist-length hair. She was about to speak when Lucas lifted her into his arms and set her down on the sofa. Then, he tilted her chin up and pressed his lips to hers. Unconsciously, the hand that had been resting on her waist began to wander upwards. This time, Lily didn't stop him. Or maybe she didn't want to. As his plan succeeded, a smile touched Lucas's lips. Indeed, the meaning of human existence was to continuously scale new peaks, even if it was just with one's own 2 hands. This was a hymn to courage. For elementary schoolers, summer vacation is always painfully short. And honestly, it's the same for college students. Who in their right mind wants to go to school? Their anniversary was at the end of August, and in the blink of an eye, the first day of the semester had arrived. It was noon, and even though it was September, the weather was still scorching. The sun hung high in a cloudless sky. When Lucas got back to the apartment, he found Lily drawing, her expression as serious as a first grader doing homework. He curiously snuck up behind her and wrapped his arms around her, unable to resist being a little shameless. Lily shot him a look that was both reproachful and gentle before turning back to her drawing. Lucas was quite pleased. It seemed that once certain privileges were unlocked, they stayed unlocked. Now, if he wanted to climb the mountain, he could. He would have to keep working hard in the future. He backed off, content with his small victory. He stuck a straw in the bubble tea he'd brought and held it to her lips. "So, how does it feel going to school without bangs? Like the whole world is brand new?" Lucas asked. Lily pouted and rested her head on the desk. "I cut them off days ago. I'm used to it now. But I'm just now realizing how many people in my class don't even know my name." "You made a joke. You get a piece of candy as a reward." "I'm not joking. It's true." Lily obediently opened her mouth and accepted the candy. She felt that with Lucas constantly feeding her, she'd never have to worry about hypoglycemia again. He was more on top of it than she was. She wondered if she'd really scared him that day. Aaron had said he looked completely drained when he got to the hospital. Lucas paused, then figured it was pretty normal. He pinched her cheek and asked with a smile, "Is reality cruel?" He remembered when he'd first started middle school. He got sick after a couple of days of orientation and had to go home. When he came back a few days later, everyone thought he was a new student. It had been painfully awkward. "I don't care if they know my name or not," Lily said softly, "but I don't like it when they bother me. When guys came up to ask for my WhatsApp, I told every single one of them I have a boyfriend. Isn't there a more permanent solution?" Lucas looked at the message from the university administration asking him to give a speech at the end of the month. "Maybe there is. Pretty soon, no girls will be bothering me, and no guys will be bothering you." It was funny, really. When their studio was tight on cash, the $15,000 grant from the university was nowhere to be seen. Now that they were making money, the funds appeared instantly, no reminders needed. They were even asking him to do promotional events. He wondered what exactly they thought they were supporting. "Why are you only drawing eyes?" Lucas asked, peering at her computer screen. "Shouldn't you learn anatomy first?" "Aaron says my anatomy practice is pretty good." Lily passed the bubble tea back to Lucas's lips. "I remember you know how to draw, right?" She had carefully saved the sketch he had given her. "A little," Lucas said nonchalantly. "How do you know how to do a little bit of everything?" "Because I learn a little bit of everything," Lucas replied, not sure whether to laugh or cry. What a dorky question. "Do you want to eat?" Lily asked softly. "In a bit. I'll watch you draw for a while." Lucas pulled a chair over from the dining table and sat next to her. Only then did he notice a book next to her monitor. "You're really reading The Three-Body Problem?" he asked, surprised. "I want to have more things to talk about with you." Lily put down her stylus, turned to face him, and met his gaze with a cold expression. "Wall facer Lucas Carter. I am your wall breaker. Your plan has been seen through." "How did you guess?" Lucas's eyes darted unnaturally toward his own room. Lily tilted her head. "Guess what?" Lucas breathed a silent sigh of relief. He didn't know why her acting had improved, but a dork was still a dork. I'm playing along with you, he said defensively. She had almost tricked his ultimate out of him with a single basic attack. Lily held Lucas's hand with her left, while she quietly drew with her right. She was beginning to understand what he meant. She was doing something she loved, with the person she loved most right beside her. When she let herself relax, she could truly feel how wonderful life could be. Lucas, quick, say you love me. This is part of the plan, Lily said suddenly. Stop learning so fast. After lunch, they cuddled for a bit before going to their separate rooms. Lucas pressed the button on the AC remote a couple of times, and, seeing no reaction, smiled smugly. He then went to his closet and pulled out a slightly thicker blanket. Squinting at the sun outside, he took a deep breath. No pain, no gain. As a master of playing the long game, how could he not endure a little hardship? His mind made up, Lucas gritted his teeth and wrapped himself in the blanket in the middle of summer. 10 minutes later, drenched in sweat, he knocked on Lily's door. She must not have been asleep yet, because she came to the door quickly. What are you? She stopped mid-sentence, startled by the sight of him looking like he was on the verge of heat stroke. She quickly reached out to wipe the sweat from his forehead. The AC in my room is broken, he said, his face a mask of misery. I'm about to die of heat stroke. Can I sleep in your room? Lily nodded gently as she wiped his brow. Okay. Lucas blinked. That's simple. I had a whole speech prepared, and you just agreed? Without a second's hesitation, he dashed back to his room and grabbed his pillow. AC feels so good. The moment he lay down, he saw Lily at the doorway, holding her own pillow. Where are you going? I'm going to sleep in your room, the girl said blankly, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. A few minutes later, Lucas was lying on the living room sofa, a standing fan blasting air directly at him, looking like he was at death's door. He had been defeated. He had lost to her innocence, to her purity. He felt like he had lost his conscience. He was like a demon, forced to wallow in the mud of a wicked world, now scorched by the holy light of an angel, so ashamed he could barely exist. He had planned everything so perfectly, only to be foiled by her simple, straightforward logic. I'm such a terrible person, he muttered to himself, filled with guilt. A long while later, Lucas suddenly flipped over on the sofa like a salted fish. No, the tables will turn. I will have my victory. The matter of sleeping in the same room as this dork required a more long-term strategy. That afternoon, he called someone to fix the air conditioner he had deliberately broken, deciding to find another, more honest, method. The next day, since she had no afternoon classes, Erin came to the office after lunch. She placed her mug of iced coffee and a bag of snacks on her desk before sitting down. Ah, yes, even slacking off required a certain ritual. Later, she'd find a chance to catch up on this week's new anime episodes. Life was good. She had just settled in when a commotion from a nearby office caught her attention. This company was a strange place. Not only did you have a boss who was consistently the first to arrive late and leave early, but you also had the boss's girlfriend who would offer to get you water. They had all developed a certain immunity to the couple's constant public displays of affection. But today, they were witnessing something even more outrageous. The company's second-in-command was arguing with his girlfriend, Jason and Vanessa. Although Jason didn't have a fixed title and was moved around wherever he was needed, no one disputed that he was number 2 in charge. See? Now do you believe me? I told you I was busy. You were too busy to come see me once all summer? So busy you couldn't even make time for our anniversary. Everyone was working overtime on our anniversary. Go ask them. Lucas was too. I can call him right now if you don't believe me. Don't bother coordinating your stories. I already asked him on your anniversary. He was at the aquarium with his girlfriend. Vanessa shot back, emphasizing the last few words. It's bad enough you didn't spend time with me, but now you're going to lie about it? Do I look that stupid? Tell me, how many times have you two ganged up to lie to me before? Erin's mouth hung open. Was she even allowed to be listening to this? She wasn't going to get fired, was she? She picked up her stylus and pretended to be working. Then again, she was the boss's girlfriend's best friend. She lifted her head and went back to watching the drama unfold. Trying to intervene would be a bad idea. As the saying goes, even an honest official can't solve a family dispute. Besides, she wasn't as close to Jason as she was to Lucas, and she'd barely spoken 2 words to Vanessa. Best to just observe for now. Jason and Vanessa were both furious, and neither had thought to close the office door. This game is blowing up right now. Of course I'm busy. The busier I am, the more money we make. Where do you think I got the money to buy you that $20,000 necklace? I stayed up all night to get that for you. I told you I didn't want that thing. Vanessa yelled, growing angrier. Jason, are you with me because you think I'm after your money? Whether you are or not, I still have to earn it. Why can't you just understand? As everyone watched, Leo Jenkins quietly approached the office, poking his head in. Hey, J-Man, let's talk this out. You know what they say. Close the door. Leo didn't seem offended by the rebuke. He dutifully shut the door and shrugged dejectedly at the snickering onlookers. All right, show's over, people. Let's get back to work before you get your heads bitten off like I did. His self-sacrifice worked like a charm. Jason's yell had been directed at him, but it felt like it was for everyone. The gawking crowd immediately lowered their heads and got back to their tasks. A short while later, the main glass door to the office slid open. You should cook less for lunch. You make a feast every time. Anyone would think I'm malnourished. But you are skinny. I'll sue you for slander, Ms. Thompson. This is called slender. Lucas walked in and froze, taking in the unusually quiet scene. Are we going out of business? He asked Aaron. Aaron found his question odd. No, why would you say that? Because all of you are being so diligent. It's unsettling. Just as Aaron was about to reply, the door to Jason's office flew open, and Vanessa stormed out, looking furious. Jason didn't follow. Lucas stood there for a second, then shot a look at Aaron. She nodded, then ran over to Vanessa with a smile, grabbing her arm. He let out a sigh, squeezed Lily's hand, and whispered, Let's go solve my boy's relationship problems. Lily tilted her head. Your boy? Aaron didn't know Vanessa well, and they weren't in the same social circle. Only Lily could really stop her from leaving. As his girlfriend, Vanessa would have to at least give her some face. Lucas leaned in close to Lily's ear. Go with Aaron, and keep her here. Lily blinked, looking hesitant. I don't know how to comfort people. It's okay, you don't have to. As long as she doesn't leave, you've succeeded. If she's willing to talk, then chat with her. If not, don't worry about it. Lucas had a feeling Vanessa wouldn't be eager to get close to Lily, but on the surface, she would definitely be polite. That was the benefit of dealing with rational people. After giving his instructions, Lucas walked into Jason's office with a neutral expression. Had a fight? Lucas asked with a smile. He had a pretty good idea what it was about. Your old man told you to go out on your anniversary, and you didn't listen. Now you're paying the price. Jason slammed his half-smoked cigarette into an ashtray. Girls are so unreasonable. You try to be logical with them, and they say your tone is bad. You fix your tone, and they bring up the original problem. The moment you have a point, they just say you yelled at them. It was a dead end. I can't disagree with that. Lucas pulled up a chair and sat down. That's just how they are. Even comforting someone required strategy. It was best to start by agreeing with them, then subtly insert your own opinion. The chances of success were much higher that way. Was it because you didn't hang out with her on your anniversary? He continued. Jason nodded slightly and lit another cigarette, exhaling a cloud of smoke like a sigh. Lucas threw his hands up. Well, you can't blame her entirely then. It's not like you were completely swamped. I just wanted to get through this busy period. Once things stabilize, the company will be set, right? I didn't hang out with her, but I did buy her a necklace. Jason explained slowly. He was at least listening to Lucas. The combined cost of every gift I've ever bought a girl isn't even close to the price of that one necklace. She doesn't care about that. When you were on the verge of being cut off by your dad and had nothing, she didn't say a word, did she? Lucas said patiently. Any of your ex-girlfriends would have been long gone. Jason paused, saying nothing. After a moment, Lucas asked in a serious tone, Who else does Vanessa have to hang out with in Seattle during the summer besides you? Jason couldn't finish his cigarette. He stood up, stubbed it out in the ashtray, and rushed for the door. Are you an idiot? Lucas snapped. You either chase after her immediately, or you wait until you've both completely cooled down. Look at us going now. He frowned. You'll just make things worse. What are you going to say when she asks why you didn't come out sooner? Jason leaned his forehead against his hand and sat back down. I've been so swamped lately. I'm not thinking straight. Lucas smiled at him. Don't worry. Vanessa probably hasn't left yet. I asked Lily to stop her. Honestly, man, I don't get you, Jason said suddenly, after a moment of silence. Don't get me. It feels like your mind is always on your relationship. While Jason didn't resent Lucas's actions, he truly didn't understand them. The company was in a period of explosive growth, and this guy was off on a date. What kind of guy does that? Where was his ambition, his dream? Just imagine you're a billionaire, but Vanessa isn't by your side, Lucas said calmly. You could have a different beautiful girl every day. Wouldn't that be great? Jason paused, then finally managed 2 words. No good. He wanted to slap his old self, the one who partied every day before he met Vanessa. He couldn't even imagine going back to that life. Lucas nodded. Now you get me. So if you don't want that, don't pour all your energy into work. Even the best relationships need to be maintained, Lucas said, stretching. His thoughts immediately drifted to how he could convince Lily to take a nap with him in the same room. Everything else was secondary. This was the real priority. What was wrong with napping together? That was relationship maintenance, too. Still part of the plan. Just a nap. He wouldn't do anything. He was a gentleman. Lucas had successfully rationalized his goal again, and the flicker of guilt he'd felt vanished without a trace. You had to keep adding fuel to the fire. Besides, it wasn't illegal to sleep next to your own girlfriend. Waiting until marriage would take too long. They couldn't even get a marriage license for almost another year. Jason remained silent, lost in thought. How do you two usually make up after a fight? He asked after a while. Maybe an outsider's perspective was clearer. He felt like all his experience as a player had been for nothing. Lucas seemed to see things far more clearly than he did now. Lucas gave him a devilish grin and sighed with mock pity. I told you before, we never fight. It's weird, but it's never happened. Not once. I know you're stressed, but chill out. The more Jason thought about it, the stranger it seemed. I just don't get it. Are you two a match made in heaven? Did Cupid use a freaking harpoon on you? Lucas's gaze drifted out the window, the smug look on his face softening slightly. Never fighting isn't necessarily a good thing. He was genuinely a little afraid that Lily would bottle everything up, never telling him if something was bothering her. She was far too used to doing that, and he couldn't bear the thought of his girlfriend suffering even the slightest injustice. But getting Lily to yell at him in anger was an impossibility. The only way was to gently encourage her to speak her mind over time. His smile returned, as if the momentary seriousness had been just an interlude. But yeah, you could say our connection was forged by the gods. It's a long story. Let me tell you all about it. Meanwhile, back at her desk, Erin watched as the office Lucas was in now held only Lily and Vanessa. If it had just been Erin trying to stop her, Vanessa could have politely brushed her off and left. But with Lily there, she couldn't bring herself to just walk away. Lucas was her friend, after all, and he and Jason were business partners now. But the atmosphere was painfully awkward. The silence in the room was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Why aren't you saying anything? Vanessa finally broke. Her voice choked with tears as she wiped her eyes. She couldn't stand it anymore. Lucas's girlfriend was so strange. Vanessa had been all prepared with polite ways to deflect any attempts at comfort. But this girl was something else. Ever since she'd walked in, she had just been sitting there quietly, clutching a box of tissues, only responsible for silently handing them over. She hadn't said a single word. Every time Vanessa wiped a tear, a tissue would appear, but there was no talking. All of Vanessa's prepared defenses were useless. She couldn't just get up and leave, could she? Vanessa looked at the worried face of the girl in front of her and found she didn't have the heart. You don't hit someone who's smiling, after all. Lily nervously fiddled with her fingers. I don't know what to say. Before she came in, she had rehearsed all sorts of comforting phrases in her head, a whole theory of consolation. But now her mind was a complete blank. Vanessa, who had been furious just moments before, couldn't help but let the corner of her mouth twitch up. Lily's behavior perfectly matched the impression she'd always had of her. They had barely spoken, yet here she was, sitting with a face full of concern. She was a genuinely kind-hearted girl, just a bit too gentle. No wonder Jason had said she'd been bullied at that restaurant. Your eyes will hurt if you cry for too long. Please don't cry anymore, okay? Lily asked softly, her voice incredibly gentle. She knew all too well how it felt after a long, crying spell. Putting herself in Vanessa's shoes, that was the first thing that came to mind. Vanessa threw the used tissue in the trash and hummed in agreement. What would you do if Lucas was busy all summer and didn't see you? Lily thought for a moment before answering softly, I would miss him very, very much. That's it. Vanessa looked at Lily in disbelief. She stared at the girl's delicate features and clear eyes, her own mouth slightly agape in confusion. After a pause, she let out a deep sigh. You're lucky your boyfriend is Lucas. She's so easy to take advantage of. Vanessa didn't dare to imagine other scenarios. All she could say was that Lily was lucky. And more importantly, she knew how to cherish what she had. Seeing that Vanessa had stopped crying, Lily, though unsure why, quickly pushed a glass of water toward her. Have some water. Just as Vanessa was about to speak, the office door opened slowly. It was Lucas. Jason's in there crying his eyes out. You should probably go check on him. From now on, I'm not believing a single word that comes out of your mouth. Vanessa said coldly, but she got up and walked out anyway. Inside Jason's office, he immediately approached Vanessa with a grin the moment she walked in. Oh, so you were really crying? She said, her expression stern. Jason tried to take her hand, but she pulled away. His eyes were red as he chuckled. Just finished. I took tomorrow off. We'll go out. We can go to the aquarium, too. Lucas is an idiot for going when it's so crowded. It'll be perfect tomorrow. He silently cursed Lucas in his head. That bastard really made me cry. The onion trick hurt like hell. I don't want to talk to you. Though her words were harsh, Jason eventually succeeded in taking her hand. When I make enough money, we'll get married. We won't take a cent from my dad for the house or the car. Then he won't be able to boss us around, Jason said, giving her a light pat. You can just stay at home and be a rich housewife. Vanessa patted him back. Only a blind person would marry you. Go return that necklace. They continued their playful back and forth patting, and before they knew it, their hands were intertwined, and they were kissing. Utterly scandalous. My girlfriend is amazing, Lucas said, taking Lily's hand for a high five. You know what they say, better to save a relationship than to tear down 10 temples. You've done a great deed today. Lily looked at the closed door, confused. She tilted her head and said in a small voice, but I didn't do anything. Her dazed look puzzled Lucas. He wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. What are you thinking about? Lily rubbed her cheek against his. I was thinking about what we would do if we ever got into a fight. Why are you so afraid of us fighting? Lucas asked, curious. Lily had mentioned this before when she heard about Jason and Vanessa. He was surprised she was bringing it up again. The girl thought for a moment, then tugged on his arms, pulling him closer. I don't want you to yell at me. I'm scared. Silly girl, have I ever yelled at you? Lucas asked softly. Should I call you honest, or just adorably dense? No. Lily leaned back against him. I'm just saying, I'd never have the heart to. Lucas leaned down and kissed her forehead. Yell at her? He'd probably want to kill himself if his tone was even slightly off. The kind of thing that would make him wake up in the middle of the night just to slap himself. How could he ever bear to let this dork feel wronged? Other guys' girlfriends are always giving them ultimatums, but here you are, afraid your boyfriend will yell at you. He continued to joke. Lily's eyelids drooped slightly, and a faint smile played on her lips as she gently squeezed his hand. Because you're all I have. Other girls had their parents to back them up, but she had no one. The kindness or harshness in Lucas's tone was magnified for her. Because she had never had it before, she was now terrified of losing it. She had seen the light. She could never go back to the darkness. A sense of security isn't something I can give you in a day or two. Leave it to me. We'll take it slow, Lucas said, gently kneading her hand in his. Unconsciously, their fingers intertwined into a pinky promise. That evening, when Vanessa returned with street hot dogs, she had brought a portion for Lily, too. Lucas casually snatched a skewer and ate it with a goofy grin. Is this dork's ability to win people over a little too strong? Am I going to get overthrown one day? Lucas took a sharp breath and planted a firm kiss on the cheek of the girl beside him. Lily didn't complain. She just smiled at him, the dimples in her cheeks radiating happiness. She pulled out a tissue to silently wipe the grease from her face, then another to wipe his mouth. She was surprisingly quite happy. That night, Lucas went home to talk to his parents about the house. As he walked in, he saw Robert Carter sitting on the sofa, reading a book. It seemed his father's hobbies were always solitary activities. Dad, where's Mom? Lucas asked. Robert jutted his chin toward the kitchen. Son, you're back. Emily Carter came out of the kitchen with 2 plates of watermelon, looking pleasantly surprised. Have you eaten? I came back to eat here. You didn't say you were coming. Your father and I already ate. Lucas quickly checked the time. It was only a little after 7. The sky hadn't even fully darkened. I've barely ever come home, and there's no dinner for me. Emily sat on the sofa and let out a long sigh. Your father and I are getting old. With you and Emma not at home, we just throw something simple together for dinner. That's how it is when you get old. Lucas grinned, plopped down next to his mother, and leaned in for a sniff. Mom, he declared loudly, you two just got back from a barbecue restaurant, didn't you? I can smell the smoke. I treat you like my own mother, and you're playing mind games with me? Is that fair? Robert quickly cleared his throat, trying to stop Lucas from pushing his luck. Emily, her act exposed, felt a bit guilty. She picked up a slice of watermelon and offered it to Lucas. Lucas flopped onto the sofa with a look of disdain, chewing on the watermelon. Fine, I'll go to my girlfriend's place for dinner then. I'll have Lily cook for me. I'll talk. If you're so capable, then make Lily my daughter-in-law. I just went to my colleague's grandson's 1-month celebration party the other day. She's only 2 years older than me. We're not old enough to get a marriage license yet. Your father and I had the wedding first and got the license later. That was your generation. This is now, Lucas said. He felt like his mom was either going through menopause or just worrying for the sake of it. He smiled, then suddenly felt a little wistful. Just a couple of years ago, his mom was always talking about traveling the world. Now all she wanted was to hold a grandchild. They really were getting old. Think bigger. Maybe you'll be holding a grandchild when you're your colleague's age, Lucas joked. Robert was hard to fool, but Emily was easy to please. He then sat up straight and looked at his parents. On a serious note, you two should go pick out a house when you have time. I'm buying it for you. I'll come clean. I made a few million since summer vacation, and that's not even counting future earnings. Emily hesitated, then reached out and touched Lucas's forehead. Mom, what are you doing? Checking if you have a fever. Was there something wrong with her son? He makes a few million, and instead of showing off or buying a fancy car, he wants to buy a house for his parents? And says he'll keep living in that rental? Not normal. If Lucas had come to show off a new sports car, she probably wouldn't have said much, but this situation made her genuinely worry that her son's brain had short-circuited. You should keep it to buy a house for your wedding. Your mother and I don't need you to buy us a house, Robert said calmly, though inside he felt a little disappointed. Ever since Lucas started his business, he had been ready to step in as a father and put on a show. No, lend a hand, at his son's most difficult moment. But Lucas had never given him a chance. I'm not saying I'm not buying one for myself. I plan on buying two. And this is to show my appreciation for you. What do we need so many houses for? We can't even live in the one we have, Emily said, seemingly unconcerned. Just buy me a mahjong table. I'll put it in the living room. Whenever your dad goes out to play chess, I'll invite people over for a game. Why is it so hard to talk to you two? Lucas was exasperated. He couldn't even be a filial son. All right, I'll just tell you the truth. The other house isn't for our wedding. I'm planning on buying it for Lily's mom to live in. Their lease is almost up, and the place isn't great. So I thought I should get you one too, a nicer one. He placed a bank card on the coffee table. The company doesn't need this money for operations. Take it. He then smugly crossed his legs, ready to see the look of shock on his parents' faces. If you're buying it for them, then buy it for them. Lily will be your wife someday, and Sophia will be your mother-in-law, Emily said seriously. You don't have to try to make everything perfectly even. Your father, and I know what kind of person you are. They've had a tough time. If you can help them now, then help them. They've been so good to you. They're not outsiders. After a bit more small talk, Lucas let out a weary sigh. This is so boring. All those dramatic show-off scenes in movies were lies. Not a single person in his life had their eyes light up when they heard he'd made money. His girlfriend didn't even seem to care how much he made. For a moment, he wasn't sure if he should be happy or not. Looking slightly dejected, Lucas stood up and headed for the door. Where are you going? Emily asked. To your daughter-in-law's place for dinner. Lucas sent Lily a message saying he was on his way over for dinner, then got in his car. Just as he pulled out of the neighborhood, a few sparse raindrops hit the windshield, quickly growing into a dense downpour. What's with this weather this year? Why so much rain? Just as he was complaining to himself, his phone rang. He had recently changed his ringtone from Pachelbel's Canon to Scarborough Fair because people kept telling him the old one gave them anxiety. He glanced at the screen and saw it was Leo Jenkins. He answered it. What's up? Lucas asked. Lucas, a guy on my team just quit. He's a senior. Leo emphasized the last part. Lucas hummed non-committally. Leo continued. He's from the same state as me, so I joked about him going home to take over the family business. He said his next job is still in Seattle, and he's pretty much got it lined up. A smile touched Lucas's lips. Where are you now? At the office. All right, wait there for me. After hanging up, Lucas sent another message to Lily. Lucas, I have to go back to the office for a bit. I'll be over later. Kissing emoji Lily. It's okay. I'll wait for you. It seemed Lily still hadn't mastered the art of using emojis. Lucas sighed with a smile and drove on through the curtain of rain. A little over half an hour later, Lucas pushed open the glass door to the office. It was long past business hours, and the only person there was Leo, sitting in front of two monitors, focused on something. Outside the large floor-to-ceiling windows, only scattered lights were visible. Inside, only a single row of lights was on, failing to illuminate the entire space and making it feel a little desolate. What are you still doing here? I didn't ask for any overtime, Lucas said, stomping his feet. He grabbed a tissue to dry his hair, but found it wasn't enough. He then swiped a compressed face towel from Aaron's desk, pressed it to his hair, and it instantly absorbed a good amount of water. This stuff worked wonders. Still have some things to finish, Leo said without turning around. He had a peculiar stubbornness when it came to his work. When the programming team was slow, he'd take paid bathroom breaks all the time. But when they were busy, he was always the last one to leave. Once he got in the zone, he'd just keep going. It was him, wasn't it? Lucas asked suddenly, his voice cold. Leo nodded firmly. When that scrap character design first came out, there were only a few people on the programming team. You just paid out bonuses yesterday, and he leaves today. It's too much of a coincidence. He then smiled at Lucas. Lucas, you made a big deal back on your anniversary about paying out huge bonuses, and then you transferred the money to everyone individually. That was all to make him feel safe to quit, wasn't it? The more he thought about it, the more he realized that Lucas's words that day, as long as no one bails on us during this crucial time, there'll be massive bonuses, had a hidden meaning. After confirming his suspicions with Leo, Lucas had paid out the bonuses to the art team and the guy named Lee Young a day early. After waiting so long, the fish had finally taken the bait. Of course it would run, thinking it had just gotten a free meal. From now on, you'll lead the programming team and also handle some separate matters for me, Lucas said, walking up behind Leo. $30,000 will be in your account within a few days. All of that guy's bonuses are yours now. Leo was stunned. Why so much? He had been ecstatic when he got the initial $2,000, immediately spending a good chunk of it on in-game purchases. The first round was only $2,000 because the mole was still here. Now that he's gone, I'm giving you guys the bonus I originally planned. Your $20,000 plus his 10. A total of 30 grand. Lucas flipped through the contract Lee Young had signed when he was hired, his tone flat. A person can never earn what they can't conceive. Lee Young is a perfect example. He's too short-sighted. He lost out on a lot more than $10,000. He then joked, couldn't even see that my company is a future Fortune 500? The guy has no vision. Leo's lips curved into a small smile. He felt like Lucas was singling him out for praise. Lucas, are you serious about me working directly with you? Of course. No need for a grand pronouncement. This was how you promoted someone. The fact that Lucas had come all this way was a sign of how much he valued him. I'm heading out. The boss's girlfriend is waiting for me to come home for dinner. At the door, Lucas looked back. You're not going home. I'm sleeping here tonight. The new character keeps bugging out, Leo said, pointing to a thin blanket on his chair. Lucas's jaw nearly hit the floor. You really have a dream? Huh? I do, Leo said earnestly. He knew that if he didn't seize this opportunity, he'd never have this much influence anywhere else. And he truly admired Lucas's way of thinking and his vision. Who wouldn't want to follow a brilliant leader? Especially one who is helping you realize your own childish dreams. Why are you working overtime? Wouldn't you rather be at home, playing games? Lucas remarked, then hurried out. He drove to the entrance of the alleyway. Since there was no parking nearby, he pulled into a spot across the street. Just as he was about to park, he saw a figure standing alone at the mouth of the alley, perfectly still. In the rain, a long-haired girl stood motionless. Streams of water ran down the edges of her umbrella, pooling on the ground below. Whenever a car passed, its headlights would sweep across her, and she would quickly look up, only to lower her head again in disappointment, continuing her quiet vigil. It was quiet in the car, too. The girl's silhouette repeatedly sharpened and blurred with each pass of the windshield wipers. Lucas froze for a moment, then quickly got out of the car and ran into the rain. He didn't have to guess. Only his girlfriend, Lily, would be this foolishly devoted. What are you doing here? He asked hurriedly, his words mixing with the sound of the rain. The girl looked up, the umbrella tilting with her. Waiting for you, she said softly. As she spoke, she raised her hand and took a couple of steps forward, bringing him under the shelter of the umbrella. The gesture was both adorable and earnest. Lucas gently poked her forehead. Didn't I tell you I was going back to the office? You didn't even know when I'd be back, and you just waited here. When I was staying at your place, you told me you didn't have an umbrella, Lily explained slowly. You never liked carrying one, and I was worried you'd get wet. It's a 2-minute walk. And are you silly? You could have just waited for me to call you before coming out. Lily took out a tissue and gently wiped the raindrops from Lucas's face. I'm very smart. I didn't come out right away. I waited a while. The person who thinks getting a little wet is no big deal is the silly one. I know you wouldn't call and bother me just for this. You'd never want to trouble me. And besides, I wanted to see you sooner. Lucas sighed, not saying another word. He silently reached out and intertwined his fingers with hers. How was it that this dork was so thoughtful when it came to him? They walked side by side through the rainy night, sharing a single umbrella. Without a word, they both slowed their pace, clearly in no hurry to finish their 2-minute walk. The day had been scorching hot, but the rain had brought a chill to the air. A drop of water splashed onto Lucas's face, making him shiver. But Lily's arm was warm. He wondered if girls naturally had a higher body temperature than guys. Don't wait for me like this again, okay? Lucas said in a serious tone, taking the umbrella from her. Okay, your lease is almost up, right? Lily nodded gently. Soon. I need to start looking for a new place. There's not as much pressure now, so we can find somewhere nicer. It felt surreal, knowing she wouldn't have to live in a dark, tiny apartment like this anymore. She had gotten used to it, but she could never get used to her mother living in such a place. Now, that thorn in her side was finally gone. Her mom wasn't that old. They could take things slow. There was plenty of time to work hard and give her a better life. As she thought, her gaze fell to their intertwined hands, and a small smile bloomed on her face. And there was plenty of time to be with Lucas. A wave of happiness washed over her. Want to go look at houses this weekend? We can buy one that's move-in ready, Lucas continued. Huh. Lily was clearly taken aback. Are you really going to buy one? What kind of question is that? Did you think I was lying to you? No, I just didn't think it would be so soon. She had agreed at the time, but she never imagined Lucas would have saved up the money for a house this quickly. Lucas held out a hand, catching a few raindrops before letting them trickle through his fingers. We'll find one we like and pay in full. One of those places that's already furnished, so your mom can move in right away. Lily blinked at him. How much would that cost? Yes, that's the line I was waiting for. A smug grin spread across Lucas's face. A few $100,000, maybe. It's fine, I've already earned it. Your boyfriend's pretty amazing, huh? The girl's mouth fell open slightly. She then nodded vigorously. Amazing. That's it. That's all. Your reaction is so calm. Lily was dumbfounded. What kind of reaction do you want? This guy was so weird. If it were her, she'd be at home, counting her money, not worrying about how other people reacted. Your tone wasn't right. It should have been more surprised, with a little more admiration. You should be thinking, wow, and that's my boyfriend, Lucas said, correcting her like a professional director. Lily pursed her lips, looking troubled. Do you even know what a few million means? You could buy a lot of groceries, and you'll never be able to spend it all in a lifetime. I guess so. As long as you don't do anything stupid, you're set for life. What else? Lucas was starting to think this dork had absolutely no concept of money. Or rather, no concept of any amount over $10,000. You don't have to be afraid of your family getting sick anymore. Lucas paused, then changed the subject. Never mind. Forget it. Just act more excited, or I'm going to have my way with you. Lily panicked. Teasing in the apartment was one thing, but they were so close to her home now. This was practically sacrilege at the foot of the holy temple. How about I give you a kiss? The girl suggested softly. Lucas nodded slightly. That could work, but it's still missing something. Lily pouted. It's because I've always known you're amazing. And I don't care how much money you make, so I'm just not that excited. She figured it was all about expectations. If Aaron came up to her one day and said she'd made a few million, she'd be shocked. But hearing it from Lucas, it just felt normal. Besides, whether he was rich or not didn't change how she felt about him. It was hard to muster any special feeling about the money itself. As she was thinking, she saw Lucas let out a deep sigh, looking disappointed. She couldn't have known he was just bummed that his attempt to show off had failed. She thought he was unhappy with her reaction. After mustering up all her courage, Lily stood on her tiptoes, leaned close to his ear, and whispered, "My love, you're incredible." She then stepped back, her foot accidentally landing in a puddle with a soft splash. Lucas froze on the spot. He felt his brain explode along with the sound of that splash. No man could resist those words. A few seconds later, he stopped walking and turned to look at the girl before him. Lily seemed to realize what was happening and took a small step back. "It's still raining," she said. She then took another discreet step backward. "I have an umbrella," Lucas said, stepping forward. "We're almost at my house." "But we're not there yet, are we?" Lily wanted to protest further, but her back was already against a wall. Lucas held the umbrella over them with one hand and wrapped the other around her waist, slowly lowering his head. Seeing that her protests were futile, the girl instinctively closed her eyes, even though it was pitch black around them. "I'm never complimenting you again." Why do you seem even more energized now? The old streetlights had shorted out in the rain. The alley was so dark you couldn't see the end. Two dark figures clung to each other, embraced by the night. The girl's occasional soft hums were as powerless as her resistance, swallowed by the sound of the rain, gradually fading away. A long while later, as they reached the end of the alley, Lily turned to Lucas. "If I could make a few million in the future, would you not have to work anymore?" Lucas let out a mischievous laugh. "In your major? If you want to make millions, you should probably switch careers. All the brilliant accountants are in prison." Lily sighed internally, feeling more and more that making money was hard. It was only now that she truly understood what Lucas had meant back when he'd asked her to tutor Emma. He had talked about perspective. Once she saw that tutoring could earn hundreds of dollars an hour, she stopped considering jobs that paid $100 for a full day of exhausting work. Lucas's perspective was even higher. He didn't even need to consider tutoring jobs that paid a few hundred an hour. She felt like she was slowly learning so much from him. If she had never met Lucas, she'd probably still be working part-time at that restaurant, handing out flyers in her spare time, only knowing that she needed to make more money, without realizing she should invest in herself first. "I don't think I'll be able to be your sugar mama," Lily said suddenly, her voice pitiful and bummed out. "I don't think I'm as smart as you."